close the doors of your mind, close the gates of your palace, your temple, your hall, your sukkah, your mishkan, your mikdash, your body, your mind, your thought process, your gates of your mind. And bring your mind to balance within yourself, within your 12 cranial nerves, within your 12 melon centers, within your eyes that have seen things you should not see, and your ears that you heard things that you should not have heard. And the things you indulged in within yourself, seeking after wisdom that is not profitable for one to actually attain. And bring your mind to balance within yourself, within your center of your body, within your ChayParach, within your yasad, within the malkuth, within yourself. For today is a day of freedom. Today is a day that Yahuwah has given to us as a gift. He say the last day, he say Chag sukkah, knowing that he say the last days, men will go after their own self, being lovers of themselves rather than lovers of Yahuwah. They'll be lovers of their houses and their things and their riches and the things that they have in this life, rather than dwelling in the sukkah booths, in sukkah. And to bring themselves back to a humility and understanding of who one is under Yahuwah's feet, under his sapphire throne. For today we acknowledge the one who made all the har of the earth, all of the nahar, the rivers and streams of the earth, all the mountains and the highest mountains. The one who sits above the highest mountains and who casts down every lofty tree that tries to exalt himself above the clouds. The one who gives life and understanding to our inward man, our inward being, both male and female, allow us to walk in righteousness continually. The one who allows us to live in righteousness and purity of mind and purity of thought, pure hands and pure feet, that we may be clean entirely, not wanting anything but to be clean in Yahuwah's sight and to walk and to praise him. Yahuwah Elohim. So this Yom, as we move forward every single day, and we continue to move forward, we move forward in the transformations of the fruits of the Ruach continually, knowing that we should not even have an opportunity for all are worthy of punishment. But we will in no wise clear the guilty within ourselves. We will in no wise clear the guilty within our eye, what we just seen with our eyes, what we heard with our ears, and what we try to understand with our heart that was not pleasing to Yahuwah. And that's what we will do. Right, so this is the book of Aydah, Job, chapter 37. Aydah, Job, chapter 37, and verse 1. Aydah, Job, chapter 37, and verse 1. Aydah, chapter 37, and verse 1. And at this time also my heart trembles and leaps out of its place, right? Just like you know how the child leaped in the womb when Mariam went to go see Yahshua. He said, man, she heard the greeting of Mariam, she heard that the child leaped in her womb. Why? Because when you start looking at the purity of mind and purity of thought and the honest intentions, and you start to see things start to manifest within oneself. But he said, at this my heart trembles and leaps out of its place. What is he talking about? Keep listening to the thunder of his voice, huh? He said the thundering of his coal. Why would you keep listening to the thunder of his voice? And the rumbling that comes from his mouth. He said that's why his heart trembles and leaps out of his place. He said you should tremble. Why? Because if you don't tremble, if you ain't trembling at the fear of Yahuwah, if you ain't trembling at his voice, then guess what? You don't fear your Elohim like you say you do, right? And this is the whole point of this whole thing. Right, this is the book of Psalms chapter 99 and verse 1. Psalm Tahalim chapter 99 and verse 1. Psalms chapter Tahalim chapter 99 and verse 1. 99, you go to 18, you go to 9, right? All that's important, right? And it says, Yahuwah reigns, let the peoples tremble. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know everybody else need to be reigning. All you need to know that Yahuwah rules and he reigns. You ain't got to know nothing else. And you know what else he said? He is enthroned upon the cherubim. He on the cherubim. Right? We talked about these cherubim. He's swinging the sword, keeping away the tree of life. And you know what he says? Let the earth quake. He said, man, my heart went out of his place. Even the earth understands that. The Aras is a female-natured being. It's a female nature. The feminine earth understands that Yahuwah rules and the earth shakes. Even the beings in Tartarus, in the underworld, even Gaia herself, she know, and all the other beings in the underworld in Tartarus that people don't know about. He said they even tremble because he said let the earth quake. Why? Why would the earth quake? Because this ain't the first time the earth shook. This is the first time you seen the earthquake. He said that's the first time I ever felt the earth shook. That ain't the first time the earth shook though. Right? He said, I never experienced my first earthquake. Some people experience it naturally, but they never experienced it with Yahuwah's voice in their heart and their mind, and their heart trembles out of its place. They haven't experienced that type of earthquake within themselves. That's what they haven't experienced. And once you experience that, then you understand, okay, I need to be quiet. Why? Because it's important. Right? So going to the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6. I think it's, Bereshit, Genesis chapter 6 and verse 1. Actually, going to verse, Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 6 and verse 5. It says, Yahuwah saw that the wickedness of man was great in the Aydah, and every intention and thoughts, or intention or yetzer, intention of his thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. They makashba on their yetzer. It was only evil continually. But guess what? And Yahuwah regretted that he had made Adam on the earth. And it grieved him to his heart. It grieved him to his heart. Has it grieved you to your heart? That Yahuwah trembles? It make your heart tremble out of its place? Because it should. And guess what it says? So Yahuwah said, I will blot out Adam, whom I created from the face of the land, from the earth, Aydah, man, animals, creeping things, birds of Shaby'ay, for I am sorry that I have made him. So now you see Yahuwah judging Adam's whole household. Because what was a part of his household? Everything he just named. Everything he just named. That was a part of his household. We talked about yesterday, the other day. We talked about he going to judge male, female, old, young, donkey, ox. It's everything that's in his household. He knows, he looking at that whole family of Adam. And he says, you know what? Your whole family is really getting on my nerves. So he says, I'm going to blot your family out. But he said, but Nuach found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah. So Yahuwah looked around and he scanned for a man. He was looking for a man to execute judgment. He was looking for somebody who trembles at his debar, whose heart is turned upside down at his voice. And he found one person. He found Nuach. He said, Nuach, man, Nuach be trembling when I speak. I like Nuach. Nuach is who I like. You know, the snow, I like him. I like him. Even though he may descend out from evil people, I like him though. Because he really does, he understands this. Right, so this is the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9 and verse 11. Genesis chapter 9 and verse 9 and 11. Actually, go up, Bereshit, Genesis chapter 9 and verse 8. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 9 verse 8. Then Elohim said to Nuach and to his sons, with him, behold, I will establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you. That's a marriage. That's a marriage covenant. A bereath. That's a marriage covenant. He made a marriage covenant with a man who trembles at his debar and his heart is turned upside down. It's just like a woman getting roused by a man and she want to marry him, and guess what? Her heart get turned upside down. He's like, man, I'm going to make a covenant with you because you actually want me. You actually want to be with me. Why would Yahuwah not? He's like, man, this person actually wants to be with me. So therefore, I'm going to make a covenant with you. And guess what? With you and your offspring after you. And with every living creature that is with you. Because, man, I see that you actually want. So I'm gonna marry you and everybody that's with you. You know how you say when you marry somebody, you marry their whole family? He said, I'm gonna marry you and everybody with you, because you know what? Because you actually want to be with me. That's the power of you wanting Yahuwah. That's the power of Yahuwah. That's why he told, why do you think the man trembled when he came into Acts chapter 16? He said, what must I do to be saved? He said, believe in the Don Yahusha and you and your household will be saved. He said, Yahuwah said, being that you want me, I'm going to save you and everybody that's with you. So if the man love Yahuwah and you don't want to be with him, just understand you ain't gonna be saved. Because for some reason people think, yeah, you know, I'm gonna get in. He said everybody with you. He said I'll make a covenant with you and everybody with you. So therefore, I'm gonna save you. And guess what he said? And with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you. That's what you call a household. That's what you call a household. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's donkey, ox, male servant, female servant, wife, children, because that's a part of his whole operation. It says, it is for every beast, he says, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. So he said, everything that came up out of the ark you got. And guess what? It is for every beast of the earth, and I will establish my covenant with you, my bereaved. And guess what he said? That never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the Aydahs. Now you see why the earth trembles. The Aydahs already knew this. Them other guys that y'all call the earth, they already knew this. That's why you changed. That's why they had them. That's why these demons had you change their name of the Aydahs to another god, so people can worship it. Because they already knew this. The earth already knew that Yahuwah shook and destroyed the place already. You think the earth don't know it again? You think the earth Aydahs don't know that Yahuwah going to get ready to destroy the earth again? Man, they getting ready to do something else on the earth, and the earth start to shake. That's how you know. When the earth start to quake, that's how you know Yahuwah getting ready to do something. He done uttered something out of his voice, and guess what? It's against the earth. It's against what people were doing on the earth, and the earth shaking. And you have to understand these signs. You have to be not hakmah da'af within oneself, and your heart need to be trembling and turned upside down. And guess what? And it says right here, and I will establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the Aydahs. And Elohim saw, this is the sign of the covenant that I will make between you and every living creature that is with you, for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud. I set my bow, my rainbow, my Qahalath. I've set it in the Shaby'ay, in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. What? Me and who? So he made a covenant, bereaved. He married the earth. He married the earth too. When you will be making bereaved, he be marrying you. He said, this is a covenant I'm gonna make, and I ain't breaking it. I'm not breaking it. And you know what he said? I made it with the Aydahs. Now you see why the earth trembles, because that's what a woman, that's what a feminine nature should do when Yahuwah speak. The earth shakes. That's what you should. That's what every man, woman, and child should do when Yahuwah speaks. That's a part of the household that he saves. Because the people that are not, they ain't gonna shake. They gonna be mesmerized. Oh my gosh! And guess what he said? And he says, and when I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the cloud, when you see the rainbow, you see that 90, he said that 180-degree bow in the sky, you know, it's 180 degrees. He bend it with his hands, his yard and his car. And you'll see it come in the clouds with some colors on it. And it's like many colors. It's like a coat of many colors, like a virgin. And you know what he says? And I will remember my bereaved that is between me and you. Now you see why he said, I espouse you to one husband that I present you a chaste virgin to Yahushua Mashiach. I remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, in the rainbow, I will see it. When he see that, this fixed order thing, that when the sun and the rain appear, you know, we see a bow in the cloud. He says, when the bow is in the cloud, I will see it. So So you think Yahuwah can't see it? Where do you think he see it from? He make the Malaki, when the Malaki of the sun, the Malaki of Geshem, the rain, the thundering and the lightning all produce this thing that you see in the sky. By them working together, they produce a bow in the cloud. And by this bow appearing in the cloud, Yahuwah say, I want to see it. Because he said, oh, the Malaki say, remember that. Because the Malaki be reminding him. See that? And guess what? I will see it and remember. Now you see why we do Zikron Teru. Zakar. I'm going to remember it. The everlasting covenant between Elohim and every living creature. That's why you got to review what you do, what the covenants that you make. You need to review them. You need to see them again. And when you see them, then you'll understand, it makes me remember my covenant that I made. Because a lot of people just, see, now you see why people ain't like Yahuwah and ain't got his heart. Now you see why people ain't got his heart, because you should have looked at the covenant that you made, and then now you would be like, then start to remember and then call back to memory what you did. And then by doing so, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between Elohim and every living creature of all flesh that is on the Aydahchay. That's how Yahuwah is. Because every now and then they get Yahuwah mad and upset. You know how it is today. You get Yahuwah upset, and then Yahuwah be like, I'm going to flood this place. He be like, I can't do that no more. Blank. Right? I was going to blow it. I was going to flood you out. He said, I could continue. I could flood the whole earth. He'll end up flooding the whole city, and then he'll in the bow will appear in the cloud. He'll be like, oh, man. That's how he is. And he says, and guess what? And after all that, he said, why you got to do that? And this is the reason why. This is First Peter. This is the reason why. This is the reason why. This is First Peter. This is First Peter chapter 2 and verse 18. Actually, yeah, 1 Peter chapter 2 and 18. It says, servants, or Aydah, be subject to your masters with all respect, right? We're talking about in all respect, right? Because everybody is a servant. You just don't know it. Why you gotta think you gotta be just like the Mashiach, just like the body is subject to Mashiach, so the woman be to their husbands and everything. Why? Because you just read all these covenants that he made. And why you think Yahuwah said, I'm the one who married you? I married y'all. So therefore, he said, servants. That's why Abigail willingly became a servant to Dawid and said, I'm going to be a shifka in the house and wash the feet of your servants. She said, I'm going to willingly do that. A willing sacrifice. And get what he says. Servants, Aydah, be subject to your masters in all respect, not only to the good, and gentle. Because everybody good and gentle. You know how I love good and gentle people. Right? They're the best people to be around. Real. But also to the unjust. He said also to the unjust people. Because sometimes them gentle, good and gentle people got the other side to themselves. They got another side. And then guess what? You're going to have to what? You got to call these things back to remembrance. And guess what? For this is a gracious thing when mindful of Elohim. Oh. When you start to think about what Yahuwah do. One endures sorrow while suffering unjustly. Now you start to see. Now you see why Yahushua was a man of sorrows acquainted with grief. Why? Because all these things are a part of it. Verse 20 says, for what credit is it if when you sin and are beaten for it and you endure? But if you do, when you do good and suffer for it, if you endure, this is gracious thing in the sight of Elohim. For this you have been called, because Mashiach also suffered for you, leaving you an example that you might follow his steps. He said that's why he gave you an example, that you may follow his steps. Why? He committed no sin. Neither was deceit found in his mouth. Why? Because he wasn't idle-minded. When you're idle-minded, that's what happens. When you're not mindful, that's what happens. You start to what? Commit sin, and you have deceit will be in your mouth. But when you're mindful, that's why Yahuwah had to remember the covenant. When I see my bow, I'm gonna remember that thing. Because if you think on the bar, guess what? Because you know a rainbow is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. If a rainbow is beautiful, right? A rainbow is beautiful, right? So this is Philippians. We're gonna get out of here. This is the book of Philippians. I think it's 4. Philippians chapter 4 and verse 4. Philippians 4 and 4. Philippians chapter 4 and verse 4. It says, rejoice in Yahuwah always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. Yahuwah is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything. You know, we talked about yesterday, other day. Don't be anxious about your life, right? And go and say anything, but in everything by prayer and supplications with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to Elohim. He said, what you need. And the peace of Elohim will surpass all understanding and will guard your hearts and your minds in Mashiach Yahushua. Finally, brothers, whatsoever things are true. Here we go. Brothers and sisters, whatsoever things is true, whatsoever is honorable, whatsoever is just, whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is lovely. Isn't that rainbow lovely? That's what Yahuwah does. He looked at a bow, his cloud looked at his shot, and he said, man, that's a beautiful thing. That covenant I made, I thank you. I remember that covenant I made. I remember what happened. And I said, I will never do that again. And I married the earth. I married the Aydah, and I got married Nuach, made a covenant with Nuach and his family, and everybody else with him. It's lovely. Whatsoever thing is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So he says, whatsoever thing is true, that's 1. Whatsoever thing is honorable, that's 2. Whatsoever thing is just, that's 3. Whatsoever thing is pure, that's 4. Whatsoever thing is lovely, that's 5. Whatsoever thing is commendable, whatsoever is commendable, that's 6. If there be any excellence, that's 7. If there be any thing worthy of praise, that's 8. And what today is? This is the 8th day. He said, remember the covenant. He said, remember what you need to think about. Your Makashba, your Yetzer, because if you don't, every imagination and thought, I grieve me that I made Adam on the earth. Because then you'll forget about your covenants. You'll forget about what's lovely. You'll forget about what's commendable and just. You'll forget all about it. Because you ain't thinking about it. Think about if Yahuwah said, you know what, I don't want to look at that cloud anymore. I don't care about no cloud and no bow. Then he'll be like you. He'll be like us. He'll be just like us. And guess what? Then guess what that's going to make him? Yahuwah is a man that he should lie. And we know that Yahuwah is not a man, he should change his mind or repent. He said, I'm Yahuwah, I change not. We already know that. But then he'll be like us. So he has to remember every now and then. He put a bow in the cloud, just know he remembered the covenant that he made with the Aydahs. And with Nuach and his family. And everybody else with him. And go what it says. If there be anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard, he said, and seen in me, practice these things, and the Elohim of Shalom will be with you. He said, be with you. Yeah, I'm going to be with you. Because if he ain't with you, then you'll find out what happens, right? And that's what happens. All right, so this is the book of 1 Peter. First Peter, Second Peter, I guess. Second Peter chapter 3 and verse 1. Second Peter chapter 3 verse 1. Second Peter Kaf, Shani Kaf, chapter 3 and verse 1. Yeah. Second Peter chapter 3 and verse 1. Shani Kaf, chapter 3 verse 1. This is now the second letter that I am writing to you. Right? How many covenants did Yahuwah made with? He made one with Nuach and he made one with Deraz. Didn't he? Beloved, he says, beloved, in both of them, I am stirring up your sincere mind by way of reminder. It's a call. That you should remember the predictions of the Kudash Nabiim and the commandments of Yahuwah, the Savior, through your Shalakim, knowing this first of all, that scoffers in the last days, those people who mouth that, will come in the last days with scoffing. They're going to be talking against Yahuwah, they're going to be his opponent. And against Yahushua Mashiach and his 12 gates. Following their own sinful desires. We're supposed to dwell in Sukkah for 7 days. And on the 8th day, we have a solemn rest, right? A solemn assembly, right? And you got to be thinking on certain things, too. You got to be thinking about, you should remember all the covenants you made, all the beautiful things and the just things you need to do, and that you made promises to do. You need to be thinking on these things. These are the things you want to be thinking about. And by fulfilling them, that you may be in the image and likeness of Yahuwah, because that's the whole thing you need to be thinking about. And guess what? They will say, where is the promise of his coming? Uh-oh. They're going to say you're a liar. They're going to say you're a liar. They're trying to say Yahuwah is a liar. Like Satan, Shaitan. Them fighting words to Yahuwah. You know that, right? People say that's fighting words. And you know what he says? They will say, notice they say it with your pie. And what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do on the 17th day? He said, put your hand over your mouth. They will say, where is the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, all things are continuing as they were from the beginning of creation. He said, everybody been doing the same thing. Yahuwah, what happened? Because, he said it bold in the cloud. He said, everybody's still doing what they did in the beginning. It's the days of Nuach. Just like it was. Everybody they forsook what I told Adam in the garden. They forsook what I told in Bereshit 1:26 to 30. Everybody just doing what they want. All things continue as it was before. Everybody still following Shemjaza, Azazel, Azbaal, Amaro. They still following after Azazel. Everybody's still doing it. Guess what he said? It says, from the beginning of creation, for they deliberately overlooked this fact, that the Shamayim existed long ago, and the earth was formed out of water and through waters by the word of Elohim, and that by means of these the world that then existed was deluged with water and perished. You say you forgot about it, huh? Yeah, everything continued on like they were from the beginning. He's like, yeah, I remember what I did the first time, but I had made a covenant saying I won't destroy it this time. But this time I won't. But the same word, by the same debar, the Shamayim in the earth that now existed are stored up for fire. He like, I got fire now. I said I wasn't gonna do it with the water though. I'm not gonna do it. Water is very powerful now. I'm not gonna sit here and say water ain't powerful. It can put chasms, it can put canyons, it can carve out a whole, the flood came, it carved out a whole new landscape. You'd be like, man, what just happened? It can do a whole bunch of stuff. He said, it just ain't. I said I won't do it no more, so I gotta honor my voice. I gotta honor what I said. And now, get what it says. But by the same debar, Shamayim in the earth that now exist are stored up for fire, being kept unto the day of judgment and destruction of the unrighteous. But do not overlook this one fact, beloved, that with Yahuwah, one day is 1,000 years, is 1,000 years and one day. We talk about that. One day was 1,000 years, 1,000 years is one day, right? He said, isn't it 12 hours in a day? 12 divided by 1,000. 83.3. 83.3. What is that? 11. 8, 9, 10, 11. You know, 11, 11, 11, 11. It's 11th hour right now. You don't even know it. You're on the last hour. And you know what happened? You know how many hours in a day? 12 hours. And you know what happened after that? It's payday. Right? When the day end, you get your money when the day over. You get paid. Or you can get paid. Right? You're going to get paid. And get what it says. Yahuwah is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness. He's like, man, it's 1,000 years. Time sequence. This is a it's a time chamber. The time doesn't even operate the same way here. His time created time. His understanding, Binah Hamada'ah, created time itself that you call time. He's beyond time. Yahuwah is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward you. Now you see why patience is one of the fruits of the Ruach. He said he's patient toward you. You got to be patient. You know why you got to be patient? Because it takes patience to wait for a seed to grow. It takes patience for leaves to fall from a tree and wait for the next season. It takes patience for that. I want to see some ahab and love. Well, you're going to have to wait. I want to see some kindness. You're going to have to wait. I want to see some joy. You're going to have to wait. He said, man, this is not for the impatient type of this. I say this truth is not for the impatient type. You're going to have to learn how to wait. He said, wait, watch, and see. Because sometimes you will be waiting, he'll be watching, then he'll see the covenant, and he'll be like, yeah. Because he's watching, he's waiting. And just like he's sitting on his throne waiting, he's waiting for you. He's waiting on you. But is patient toward you, not wishing that any should perish. He don't want nobody to die. But guess what? But that all should reach repentance. I want everybody to reach it. But the day of Yahuwah will come like a thief, and then the Shaby'ays will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the Aydah, and the works that are done in it will be exposed. That's why he said, it's not my debar like fire. Yahuwah going to reveal all your secrets with just the utterance of his voice. You're going to be uncovered. Just like Yeremiah said, it's not my debar like fire. He said, they hate the light. They won't come to the light, lest their deeds be reproved. You ain't going to come to the fire. You ain't going to come to the burning, he said, the burning altar. Because the burning altar is burning. It's a burning altar. It's a burning fire. He said, you're not going to come to the burning fire because you don't want your deeds to be exposed. It's going to be exposed. You're going to see it. And nobody ain't going to have to say nothing to you. It's going to come to you telepathically, like a telepathic message. Man, all this stuff inside of me, it's gonna come inside of your whole body and your mind. You're gonna know you're not right. You know what? Since all these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of people ought you to be in lives of Kudash and righteousness, waiting for the hastening of the coming of the day of Elohim, because of which the heavens will be dissolved, will be set on fire and dissolved, and the heavenly bodies will melt as they burn. But according to his promise, we are waiting for new Shaby'ays. Kadash Shaby'ay, Kadash Shaby'ay, Kadash Aydahs, in which righteousness dwells. That's the whole point. But what's the whole point of this? Right, so this is the book of, right, so let's go to Bereshit, chapter 13, 14 through 18. And it says, Yahuwah said to Abram, after Lut had separated from him, right? So sometimes people got to be separated from you in order for Yahuwah to reveal things to you. Some things ain't just going to be revealed with people around. Some people got to be separated from you. Or you got to separate from other people. Yahuwah said to Abram after Lut had separated from him, lift up your eyes, right? And look from the place where you are, right? So he's saying, be like Yahuwah, look, see. But he says, Yahuwah said to Abram, he said, Shema. After Lut had separated from him, lift up your eyes and look to the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. He said, look north, south, and east, and westward. For all the lands or the Aydahs that you see, I will give to you and to your offspring forever. He said, I'm going to give to you and your offspring. He said, I'm going to make a covenant with you. Oh, I'm going to marry you. Same thing he did in Noah. Same thing he made a covenant with the Aydahs. He said, sometimes people got to be separated from you before you get married to Yahuwah. For Yahuwah to even show you things that you don't even know. You get a covenant. He says, and I will make your offspring as the dust of the Aydahs. He said, I'll make you like the dust of the earth, right? So that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. He's like, ain't no way you're going to be able to do it. The same way you can't measure out the infinite earth, the same way you can't measure out the Shaby'ays in the worlds above and the other worlds and underneath the earth. He said, the same way you can't count every single piece of dust on the earth. Ain't no way you can do it. That just shows you how massive this is. This is massive. Beyond any mathematical equation or any mathematical calculation. Like you can use sine, you can use POS, you can put it over 3 AC, and you can try to equal it out to the velocity of a black hole. You still won't be able to understand this. You get what it says? Verse 17, arise, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I will give it to you. He said, walk the length of it, the breadth of it. Right? That's why measurements are a part of understanding. If you measuring things, right? So Abraham moved his tent. So he moved his tent. So when Yahuwah give you a berith, and he separates you from other people, and then he marries you, he marries you, and guess what he did? And Abraham moved his tent and came and settled in the oak by the oak of Mamre. I told you this is temporary dwelling places. He was just with such and such. They separated. It was temporary. And then he said, I'm gonna make a berith with you. He said, what? You gonna multiply it northward, south? He said, walk it, and guess what? I'm gonna give you all to you. And then Abraham moved his tent. He's like, I'm gonna move this thing. It's time to move. You heard what he just said? And came and settled Oak of Mamre, which are at Hebron. And there he built an Mizbeach to Yahuwah. So you can see, he didn't make this berith with Sarah. He didn't make it with Luke. These are people he came out of the land of the Chaldees with. He didn't make it with them. He made it with him. And then guess what? He said, I'm gonna marry you. Everybody with you. Who were with him? His Sarah and his servants. And guess what? That word for northward is Zaphon. He said, look northward. He said, look northward. He said, look northward. Right? That's what Zaphon means. Hidden, that is in the dark. Gloomy, unknown. In the north, right? He said the north side, the northern parts, right? He said, look to the north wind, northward, north side. Zaphon. He said, look northward. Look at the Zaphon, right? Look southward. Negev, or Negav. The south country, right? You know what south country, the south country, rain of the southern, to be parts in the south, right? People say, where you from? He said, I'm from the south. Well, you know what comes from the south? Hot. It's hot. You're gonna need about 15 bottles of water. You need 13 bottles of water. 13 coconut waters. Right? You're gonna burn up. You're gonna be so thirsty. You come from the south. Right? You're gonna get tan. Right? It says Negev, But it says some other things, but it says south. But it also says Negev, southern district of Yehuda, right? And it says south side, south country. He said, look northward. And he said, look eastward. That's Kadam. It means beginning. From earliest or old, ancient, or foretime, ancient time. Look to the east. Look to the east. It says also look to the front of the place. He said the four parts, the east part. Ancient time or foretime. He said look to the Kadam. And then also he said look westward. That's Yom. It's Yom. That word for westward is Yom. It means sea. It means Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Dead Sea, Sea of Galilee. That's what it says here. Sea of basin, the temple, seaward, roar. When you see that word Yom, you'll see it when he said he made the sea, the waters above and below. You start to see that in the beginning, in the first 26 verses of Bereshit, Genesis. I breathe. It says roar the sea coast. Right? He said you're gonna see it. He said, look all that. You see all that land I'm gonna give you? I'm gonna give that to you. I'm gonna marry you. He said, why? Because when you look at the totality, he said, look northward, southward, eastward, and westward. That's 4. Right? So look at this is the 22nd day of the 8th month. Well, 22nd day of the 7th month. Which what? 22 equals to what? 4. He said, look northward, southward, eastward, and westward. And you look at the tau, he said the 2, or the T, equals to 400. Equals to 4. Then he said what? It's a sign, a signature, 4 corners, 4 directions. That's what it means. It's a sign. Why do you think he put the bow in the cloud for Nuach? It's a sign to him. It's a covenant. It's all totality, completion, sign, mark, covenant. Covenant are also promises. It's a promise, an agreement. That's what we just read. We read about agreements, closed to press, in writing. He said in writing. Right, going back to Job chapter 37. Job, chapter 37 and verse 1. Job, chapter 37 and verse 1. Job, chapter 37 and verse 1. At this also my heart trembles and leaps out of his place. He said, my heart trembles. Keep listening to the thunder of his call, his voice. Thunder of his voice and the rumbling that comes from his mouth. Under the whole Shaby'ay he lets it go. And his lightning to the corners of the earth, to the 4 corners. Northward, southward, eastward, westward. Right? After it, his voice roars. Right? You're talking about the whole Aydahs. Those are the earthquake, those are the earth tremble and the thunder and lightning appear everywhere in the Aydahs. In the whole world. It do. Everywhere. After it, verse 4, after it, his voice roars, he thunders with his majestic voice, and he does not restrain the lightnings when his voice is heard, right? So I want you to see that lightning. I want you to see it come out. I want you to see my voice and how beautiful it is, how majestic it is. Elohim thunders wondrously with his voice. He does the great things that we cannot comprehend. All that come from his mouth. You can try to understand all of it. It's infinite. And get what it says. For to the snow, he says, fall on the Aydahs. And that's what we're going into. We're going into the longest night, and guess what? The snow getting ready to fall. He does that with his voice. Can you do that? Fall on the Aydahs. Likewise, to the downpour, his mighty likewise the downpour, his mighty downpour. As rain and snow come down from Shaby'ay, Shaleg and Geshem, so do the barby that goes out of his mouth. He seals up the hands of every man. He seals up the hand of every man. Right, that word, Ayub chapter 37 and verse 7. Job Aydah, chapter 37 and verse 7, that word for hand, because what hand you think that is? What hand you think that is? Is Yod. Is Yod. Is Yod. He told Abraham, look at the two. Look at the two. Look at the four corners. Look at northward, southward, eastward, westward. Look at it. And guess what? He seals up the Yod of every man. That's why we did kafar. That all men whom he made may know it. Both male and female, Adam. Why do you think he said male? He said that every man, all men, right? Because that all men, every man or Adam may know it. Because Adam is supposed to know it. That's both male and female. Why do you think you do it? He said, I don't need to know this. Yes, you do. Then the beasts go in their layers. Why? Because this is a new, when you raise up your right hand, kafar, you literally saying you accept Yahushua Mashiach. And then guess what? Then the beasts go in their layers and remain in their den. He said, when the lightning come, when the earth start trembling, he said, man, them animals getting out of the way. And amazingly, the beasts go in their dens. And that's the same thing you see in the book of Chazon, Revelation, when he said, rocks following us and hide us from him who sits on the face of the, sits on the throne. The animals got more, gonna be in there too. It says, from its chamber comes the whirlwind. The tempest, his finger, his hurricane, his, like they say, tornado, his whirlwind. And cold from the scattering winds, right? Where cold come from? Cold come from the north. South heat come from the south. And guess what? By the breath of Elohim, ice is given, and the broad waters are frozen fast. Which direction you think that comes from? He loads the thick clouds with moisture, and the clouds scatter his lightning. And guess what? They turn around and around by his guidance. He said, when you see that hurricane, when the eye, and you see the lightning around it. And guess what? On the face of the inhabitable world. Guess what it says? Whether for correction or for his land. For his lots, his whole earth. Is on the whole earth. Look northward, southward, eastward, and westward. Look at the four corners of the Adats. Look at all the correction I put out. Get what he said? For his land or for his love. See how much love I got? He causes it to happen. And guess what? Hear this, O Aydah, stop and consider the wondrous works of Elohim. Why would he say that? Do you know how Elohim lays his command upon them and causes the lightning of his cloud to shine? How do you know how you do that? Do you know the balancing of the clouds and the wondrous works of him who is perfect in knowledge? Do you know it? You whose garments are hot when the Adats is still because of the south wind. That's where heat come from the south. He said, look northward, southward, eastward, westward. Didn't we just read that? It comes from the south. That's where heat come from. Can you like him spread out the skies? Can you do it? Because you know we sit under the blue sky. Hard as a cast metal mirror. Teach us what we shall say to him. He said, teach us what we're going to say to him. We cannot draw up our cases because of darkness. Because of what? Because of darkness. Because Yahuwah is light. In him is no darkness at all. Because you're darkness. And guess what it says? Shall it be told him that I would speak? Did a man ever wish that he would be swallowed up? Verse 21. And now no one looks on the light when it is bright in the sky. He say nobody looks at it no more. When the wind has passed and cleared them. He said nobody look at the sun no more. When the wind has passed and cleared out the clouds. People only go under the sun when the clouds are there. He said, when the clouds are gone, don't nobody get under the sun. Don't even look at it. Guess what he said? Out of the north, out of where? Out of the north comes golden splendor. Elohim is clothed with awesome majesty. Where he sit at? In the north. He's clothed with awesome majesty. And guess what? The Almighty, we cannot find him. He said he in the north. He is great in power. Say what? He great in power. Justice and abundant righteousness he will not violate. That's what we do. We violate mishpat and we violate righteousness. That's what we do. You make bereath and covenants and you change them. You make brief and covenants and you don't even remember what they say. So therefore, verse 24, therefore men fear him. This is why we fear him. Because he don't violate righteousness and judgment. That's why. And guess what? He does not regard any who are wise in his own conceit. He don't even regard you. Why? Because when you wise in your own deceit, he looks at you a certain way. This is Psalms 48:1. Psalms 48:1. Psalms 48:1 says, great Yahuwah and greatly to be praised in the city of our Elohim, in his Kudash mountain, beautiful in elevation, in the Simcha of all the earth. Mount Saon is in the far north. Look northward. Look Saphon. Look southward. Look eastward, westward. Look, the city of the great king. Within her citadels, Elohim has made himself known as a fortress. For behold, the king assembled, they came on together, and as soon as they saw it, they were astounded. They were in panic, they took to flight. Trembling took hold of them, their anguish as a woman in labor. By the east wind, look eastward too. Look northward, southward. You know, heat comes from the south. North, man, who can stand before a cold? Look eastward too. Look at it there. Look at it there. By the east wind, you shattered the ships of Tarshish. You know, the east wind. It turned around and around and around. Amazingly, you start to see this stuff in reality. And guess what? As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of Yahuwah of hosts, in the city of our Elohim. He said, we seen this. With our Elohim, he established it forever. We have thought on the steadfast love of our Elohim in the midst of your temple. As your name, O Elohim, so your praises reach to the ends of the earth. Look northward, southward, eastward, westward. I'm going to multiply your seed as the dust of the earth. It reached all the way to the ends of the earth. You know, if you can number everything in the cosmos, then see, they ain't had the internet, they ain't had Google, they ain't had social media to see everybody on the other ends of the earth. Abraham he spoke that Abraham, he wasn't looking on his phone. Get what it said? Your right hand is filled with righteousness. That's why your yard has to be filled with righteousness. We just talked about a yard. And guess what? Let Mount Saon be glad. Let the daughters of Yehuda rejoice. Why? Why did let the daughters of Yehuda rejoice? Because of your judgments. Because the only way Jerusalem, is going to be pardoned, she has to be judged. Her. She got to be judged. You say, Noah, I'm going to say you and everybody in your house. And everybody that with you. That's what I'm going to say. Everybody that's not with you, I'm not with you. It says, verse 12 says, walk about Saon, go around her, number her towers. And he say, number her towers. Notice how he say count. Number them. Walk around. Consider well her ramparts. Go through her citadels, that you may tell the next generation that this is Elohim, and Elohim forever and ever. And he will guide us forever. So he's saying, so he going to do all that? He said, yeah. Yeah. He's going to do all that, right? So this is right, this is the book of Joshua. Actually, let's go ahead. Right, this is the book of Job. The book of Job, chapter 18. Job, chapter 18, and verse. Job 18:1. Job 18:1. Then Bildad and Shuhite answered and said, "How long will you hunt for words?" That's what you're doing. He said, you searching for words. Consider, and then we will speak. Why are we counted as cattle? And why are we stupid in your sight? He said, why do you think we're ignorant? You who tear yourself in your anger, shall the earth be forsaken for you? Or the rock be removed out of its place? Indeed, the light of the wicked is put out, and the flame of the fire does not shine. The flame of the what? Yahuwah is light, and in him is no darkness at all. He said the flame of the fire ain't shining. Right? He said, what happened? The light is dark in his tent. Oh, what happened? He said the light is dark in your tent. Now you see why he said, who's gonna bring his case to him? Because we in darkness. Remember we just read that? He said they in darkness. He said nobody look at the sun anymore. When the winds blow and the clouds move, nobody look at it no more. And I ain't talking about the sun in the sky. When you talking about the sun that you see come out of the portal, that's a malakhi. Get what it says. And his lamp above him is put out. His strong steps are shortened, and his own schemes throw him down. He said your own self-inflicted schemes throw you down. He said that's why your light on the inside goes out of your tent, your ahal, your body. It says, for he is cast into a net by his own feet. That's why your regard. That's why Yahushua said, if I don't wash your feet, you have no part of me. Now you see why Abigail said, I'm going to wash the feet of your servants. As a shifka, as a servant. In the house of David. For he is cast out into a net by his own feet, and he will walk on its mesh. He said, that's why your feet ain't clean. A trap seizes him by the heel. He said, what seizes you by the heel? He gonna seize you by the, that's nakash. You're gonna bruise his head, you're gonna bruise your heel. That's nakash. Why do you think he said that to the woman? He said you're gonna be in between your seed and his seed. You're gonna bruise his head, you're gonna bruise your heel. He said that's nakash. A snare lays hold of him. Nakash. A rope is hidden for him in the ground. A trap for him in the path. That's what happens. But guess what happens? We're going to get there. Terrors frighten him on every side and chase him at his heels. And Nakash is everywhere. And guess what happened? His strength is famished and calamity is ready for his stumbling. He said, they're ready for you to fall. As soon as you fall, you ever seen the scary movies? They be running and then they hit the ground. They be trying to run and they hit the ground and they try to run away. They be stumbling. They be like, man, what in the world you stumbled over that little thing for? And you be getting upset. He said, that was me. I would have never done that. You don't know that. That's what we say. Man, I'd have hopped and skipped, jumped over the thing, and jumped over the other side. We say that. Verse 13, it consumes the parts of his skin. Oh, they're going to be on how you say, the consuming wasting disease. That's what Mizraim was. It consumes the parts of his skin. The firstborn of death consumes his limbs. He is torn from the tent in which he trusted. From your body. your flesh. You know how we got this natural body. No, you not. Your body's the temple of Yahuwah, and you got this flesh on the outside. You got this flesh on the outside, and then guess what? He said it consumes the parts of his skin. The firstborn of death consumes his limbs. He is torn from his tent in which he trusted. He said, you trust in your flesh. And you know what happens? And is brought to the king of terrors. He said, now you brought to the king. You trusted in your tent, your natural body. Your ahal. Know you not that your body is the temple of Yahuwah? The tent of Yahuwah? He said, but you trust in that outer man more than your inner man. And guess what happened? And you were brought to the king of terrors. In his tent dwells that which is none of his. Yahuwah knows those who are his. He said, what's in that body you got? He's put this seal on you. He said, Yahuwah knows those who are his. Yeah, what's in that body you got? Sulfur is scattered over his habitation. He said, man, I'm going to cast you in a lake of fire. Because we all going to appear before the judgment seat of Mashiach. We're going to all get judged according to things done in our body. Inside this tent, this hall that we have. We're going to be judged according to everything, all the bereath and covenants we broke, all the things we said out of our mouth we ain't do. Everything that we did in this life, we're going to get judged according to it. And guess what happens? His roots dry up beneath and his branches wither above. And guess what happens? His memory perishes from the earth and he has no name in the street. He is thrust from light into darkness. Because your whole body, your tent, ain't no lamp, ain't no fire inside of the body anymore. Ain't no fire inside of you anymore. There is no fire. Yahuwah is light, and in him is no darkness at all. And guess what happens? And it's driven out of the world. That's what happens. He said they're going to be weeping. He said you're going to find yourself in the kingdom with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and you yourself cast out in outer darkness. And guess what? He has no posterity or progeny among his people, and no survivor where he used to live. They of the west are appalled at his day. He said, where the y'all at? He said, man, they appalled. Look northward, southward, eastward, westward. You know what he says? And horror seizes them of the east. He said, man, everybody looking at you. Notice the people in the east and the west looking at the man, this person. He said, people in the east and the west looking at you. Surely such are the dwellings of the unrighteous. Such is the place of him who knows no Elohim. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 27 and verse 18. 27 and 15. Matthew 27:15. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release the crowd any one of the prisoners whom they wanted. And they had then a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. Remember Barabbas, if you get the other writings, Barabbas was ruthless, right? Man, he was real ruthless. He was a murderer, killer. Matter of fact, man, he would rob you and kill you. But he says, so when they had gathered, Pilate said to him, whom do you want to release for you, Barabbas or Yahusha, who is called Mashiach? For he knew that it was for envy that they had delivered him up. He said, man, it was for envy. The trap of envy. He said, they envied you. It was for envy that they put you up there. Jealousy, envy. That's the only reason they did it. They delivered you over. You ain't got to worry about nothing. You ain't got nobody to envy you. If nobody envying you, you ain't got no worry about this type of stuff happening to you. Ain't nobody jealous of you, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But it says, besides, while sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent him word to him. He said, his what? His woman. His Isha. And guess what? have nothing to do with this righteous man. Okay. Have nothing to do with this righteous man. What? For I have suffered much because of him today in a dream. He's like, I don't have a vision in the other world, in the unconscious world, in the spirit form, in another world. And I suffered much because of him today in my dream, in a dream. I had a nightmare. All because of this person that you talking to right now. And amazingly, when you're in tune with the spirit world, like these people were, you know, higher consciousness, how they say, and higher thought, guess what happened? Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and destroy Yahusha. The governor said to him, which of the two do you want me to release to you? So he done heard what his wife said. He done heard her already. He already heard what his wife said. And he's still going forward with everything he's doing. So who did that? Who hardened his heart that he continued to keep going with the prosecution? Who did that? He did it? No, Yahuwah hardened his heart. Yahuwah hardened that man's heart. And guess what happened? Let's see what happened. But he said there's more to this whole thing. The governor again said to him, which of the two do you want me to release to you for you? And they said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, then what shall I do with Yahusha, who is called Mashiach? They all said to him, let him be crucified, let him be killed. And he said, why? What evil has he done? The seed was sown in his mind by his Isha. It was already sown. You just gotta wait. You gotta wait. Because this ain't, Yahuwah great and had a lot of patience, that none should perish. You gotta wait. Because a lot of things, people get impatient, they say something and they lose patience. You gotta wait. And guess what he said? What evil has he done? But they shouted all the more, let him be crucified. So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this blood. See to it yourself. Now he's like, now him and his wife are in agreement. There wasn't no argument when he went back to the house. I told you not to have nothing to do with him. There wasn't no argument when he went back to the house, though. When he went back to his abode. They were in perfect agreement. He said, I am innocent of this blood, man's blood. See it to yourselves. You got to be real patient. You got to be real patient out here. I am innocent of the blood. See it to yourself. And all the people answered, his blood be on us and our children. Right? These are hasty words, right, from blind people. But that's the whole point. But skipping over, verse 32. And as they went out, they found a man of Cyrene by Simon by name. They compelled to carry his cross. And when they had came to the place called Golgotha, which is a place of skulls, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall, but he tasted it, but he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments and casting lots. When they sat down, they kept watch over him there. Where was he at? He was high and lifted up. Matter of fact, he said, the son of Adam be lifted up. I'm going to draw people to myself. Where are these people at? And they said, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall, but when he had tasted it, he would not drink it. And guess what he said? And then they sat down and kept watch over him there. Where was he? He was in the north. They were in the south. They're in the south. They're at the bottom. They're in the south. You know what comes from the south? Heat. Man, it'd be thirsty too. You'd be real thirsty too. Parched, like we read. You can be real parched. You're gonna be thirsty. And guess what? And over his head, they put a charge against him. This is Yahusha, the Malach of the Yahudim. He the king of the north. He is the king of the north. You know, over Yahudah. He the king of the north. He the king of the north. Oh, he being put over his head. Then the two robbers who were crucified him, one on the right and one on the left. You mean the west and the east were looking at him? The east, the west and the east. The west were looking at him. He said, man, they were looking at the west was like, man, look what happened to you. The east was looking at him too. Because you know the east is the right. And then the west was looking at him. You know, one from the Yam, from the sea coast. And guess what they said? And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, you will destroy the temple, rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. You know what happened? You know what happened? That's like, you know how I say, those who pass by, that's like the wind, the east wind. That's like the wind going by, moving away the clouds. You know, the wind going by, moving the clouds. Nobody want to look at the sun after the clouds, after the wind drive away the clouds. Nobody want to look at them no more. And get what it said? They were wagging their heads, saying, you who will destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the son of Elohim, come down from the cross. He said, if you are the son of Elohim, come down from the cross. But guess what he said? So also the chief priests, the scribes, the elders, mocked him, saying, he saved others, he cannot save himself. You save all them people, you can't save nobody. Right, going back to Job 18, Job 18. Job 18 and 1. Job 18 and 17. Job 18 and 17. It says, his memory perishes from the earth, and he has no name in the street. If he be the son of Elohim, come down from the cross. If he be Yahushua Mashiach, we don't know. Malach of the Yahudah. Malach of Yehuda. Malach of Yahshua, that's what you said. He need to be crucified. Verse 18, he is thrust from the light into darkness and driven out from the world. Why do you think they're dark from the 6th to the 9th hour? He has no posterity or progeny among the people, his people, and no survivor where he used to live. And guess what? They of the West are appalled at his day. Why do you think the two thieves on the cross, on totality were looking at him? It was his day. It was the best day. That was the day of Yahuwah, right? And horror seizes them of the east. He said, man, don't you fear Elohim? Remember he said that? Do not you fear Elohim? He said, why are you going to say that about this man? I thought you was the son of Elohim. He saved all of us then, since you somebody. He said, don't you fear Elohim? He said, man, this man ain't do nothing wrong. But we are just. Everything that's happened to us is rightfully so. Remember me in paradise. And you know what happens when the east wind comes? He's like, remember me in paradise. And get with it. Surely such are the dwellings of the unrighteous. Such is the place of him who knows not Elohim. He said, you don't know this man. Because if you did, he said, you will repent. He said, people will say, man, people will repent. But he said, they not. He said, Abraham, look northward, southward, eastward, westward. I'm going to give all to you, though. He said, I'm going to give it all to you. Right, this is the book of, we almost finished. Almost done. This is almost finished. Yeah, we almost done. This is the book of Psalms 107, Tehillim 107 and 1. Tehillim 107 and 1. Oh, give thanks to Yahuwah, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Let the redeemed of Yahuwah say so, whom he has redeemed from trouble and gathered in from the lands. From where? From east, from west, from north, and from the south. He gathered them all in. Why do you think they were all there in totality? In the cross. Some wandered in the desert waste, finding no way to a city to dwell in. He said they were fugitive like Cain, hungry and thirsty, and their souls fainted within them. He said, man, they were hungry and thirsty. You should say, if you eat this bread, he said, you'll never hunger no more. He said, you'll never thirst again. But guess what the people do? Even after they hear to the bar, Yahuwah hardened their heart, and they still wander, hungry and thirsty, not even knowing that Yahuwah, if you accept the Son, you will never be hungry no more or thirsty anymore. And they reject the Son and rather be hungry and thirsty over and over and over again, never satisfied. Forever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Their souls fainted within them. That's what's going to happen to them. Because he said, I'm going to say, I can do all things through him who strengthens me, right? But yeah, when you reject him, you can't. Then they cried to Yahuwah in their trouble. He says, then they cried to Yahuwah. He said, we rejected the Son before. But then he said, then they cried to Yahuwah, and he delivered them from their distress. He said, he did it. He said they cried to him. He led them by a straight path till they reached a city to dwell in. But guess what? Let them thank Yahuwah for his steadfast love. He what? Right, that word for Psalms 107 and 7. Psalms 107 and 7. Psalms 107 and 7. That word for straight. Psalms 107 and 7. That word for straight is yashar. It's yashar. It means to please well right. It means jasher, equity, straight, meet. Okay? It says that word for way is darak. That word for way is darak. So he yasher darak. And guess what? It means direct means adverbially. This is action, mode, a way. It says course of life, a road. A road. Yasher Darak. And get what it says. And verse 8 says, let them thank Yahuwah for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of Adam. For he satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. Some sat in darkness. Because they fire been put out their tent. Some sat in darkness and in the shadow of death. Because you know what happened when your tent, your fire guard, you ever been to fire? You lit a fire and you had to work for it. You gotta get the gentle shavings. You gotta get the very gentle bristles. You gotta scrape them off the wood. Then you gotta kindle the fire, right? And then once the fire gets started, you gotta keep putting wood in it to keep it burning. Then when the fire is everything heated up, you know what happens after that? It's heated up real nice. Then you gotta put more wood around it, and then you gotta blow in it with your mouth. Or you gotta hope some wind come by. Because once the wind blow by, then the fire comes back on. Once you blow on it, then the fire come back on. So you gotta do is blow with your wind, with your mouth. And then man become a living soul again. And guess what it says? Let him who thank Yahuwah for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works of the children of Adam. For he satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. Some sat in darkness and in the shadow of death, prisoners in affliction and in irons. For they had rebelled against Yahuwah's word, the word of Elohim, and spurned the counsel of the Most High, Yahuwah. So he bowed their hearts down with a hard labor. They fell down with none to help. He said, I'll put you in hard labor. And guess what? They cried to Yahuwah in their trouble, and he delivered them out of their distress. He brought them out of darkness and the shadow of death. How he did that? And guess what? And burst their bonds apart. Let them thank Yahuwah for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of Adam. He said he did that. He did all of that. Right? This is the book of Ecclesiastes. Book of Ecclesiastes, Qahalath 11 and 1. Ecclesiastes 11 and 3. 11 and 3. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the Aydahs. That's what happens. Why you think we read in the book of Aydah? He said when he thunders and he sends his rain, man, who can withhold? Who can stop it? When they full, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south, Abraham, look northward, southward, eastward, westward. Look at the whole totality of it. If the tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will be. How come you say fall to the east and the west? He said, man, the tree falls north and south. It says, he who observes the wind will not sow. He said, if you observe the wind, you ain't going to sow. And he who regards the clouds will not reap. You know why? He said, well, why would he say, he who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap? Right, so this is the book of Matthew. Right, he said, man, this is a whole nother subject, right? This is the book of Matthew. I used to go to go to the book of John. Book of John chapter 3. Let's go, John chapter 3 and verse 6. John chapter 3 verse 5. Yahushua answered, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and ruach, he cannot see the Malkuth of Elohim. Right? He said, you can't see. That which is born of flesh is flesh. He said, you trust in your tent. He said, you trusted in your tent, didn't you? You trust in your flesh. And guess what? And that which is born of ruach is ruach. Why? He that observes the wind ain't going to sow. Why they ain't going to sow no more? Do not marvel that I said to you, you must be born again. He said, you don't marvel. Don't marvel about this. The wind blows where it wishes. He's like, they who observe the wind, the rule ain't going to sow nothing. Why? The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear its sound. You hear the sound of it. You know, the feminine nature. We talked about the feminine nature going on top of the strong trees. That's what that's like that woman who gave the dream to her husband while he was getting prosecution against an innocent man. That's like him. He was a strong tree too, doing judgment. And then you see the gentle wind on top of the trees and the strong trees right in him. And he said, have nothing to do with this just man. That's the feminine nature that flew on top of the trees. And amazingly, that woman didn't. Amazingly, after she said that, and guess what? It's just like the feminine nature going on top of the trees. And he listened, and then guess what? He you know what he said? Have nothing to do with the just man. Matter of fact, I'm innocent of the blood of this guilt to this man. He said, you sow the seed yourself. Because I'm observing the wind. And guess what? I'm not sowing this seed. So you can fulfill your desires on Yahushua Mashiach. And it says, that which is born of flesh is flesh, and that which is born of ruach is ruach. Do not marvel that I said you must be born again. The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear its sound, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. You know where a dream comes from? You know where unseen force, you know where it comes and where it goes. You don't know where this stuff goes. You just hear the sound on the top of the trees, and you hear it. You hear it going against the wind. You don't know where it's going. Guess what it says? But you know not where it comes from or where it goes. So is everyone who is born of the Ruach. He said, man, when he that observed the wind, he said, you ain't going to be sowing. Get what it says? Nicodemus said, how can these things be? Right? So when you are around Yahushua, you got to be really thinking. He said, you got to be really thinking. Yahushua answered him, are you a teacher in Yahshua and you do not understand these things? Right, so when you around this man, you got to really be thinking about stuff. Why? Because you ain't thinking. He gonna be looking at people like, You get what he said? Truly, truly, I said to you, we speak of what we know and bear witness to what we have seen, but you do not receive our testimony. If I have told you earthly things and you do not believe, how can you believe if I tell you heavenly things? Shaby'ay things, ether, higher ether things. No one has descended to Shaby'ay except he who descended from Shaby'ay to the son of Adam, right? Because that's where the tree falls. If it falls to the north or it falls to the south, that's where it would be. Because where you go, when you ascend, you go up. And when you descend, you go down south. South, north. That's all Yahushua did. I was in the north, then I came to the south. Then I went right back to the north and humbled myself at the right hand of my Father. I fell all the way to the south because he went 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Then he went all the way back to the north and humbled himself under his Father in the north. And as Messiah lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so the son of Adam must be lifted up. That's why he said, why I gotta be lifted up? Because if you don't lift Yahushua up, you're missing the whole point of this. That whosoever believes in him may have eternal life. Remember, you're talking to some of the most intellectual people on earth. And Nicodemus was a teacher in Yahshua, which means they had intellectual properties that a lot of people on earth didn't have, and he couldn't even see him. He knew more Aydah than you can even imagine. And he still couldn't see Yahushua Mashiach. So what does that tell you? He couldn't even see him. Right, so going back to the book of Ecclesiastes. He couldn't even see him. Going back to Ecclesiastes. Going back to Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 4. He who observes the wind will not sow. Why? Why he ain't gonna sow? Because that was born of flesh is flesh. That was born of ruach is ruach. Fleshly sowing is different from ruach sowing. When you sow a natural seed, you can actually see where you're gonna plant it at. When you sow into the ruach, you don't know where that seed going, and you don't know where it's gonna be planted at. But it's out here though. And he says, he who regards the clouds will not reap. He said, man, you looking up in the sky. Why are you looking up at the wind? And you keep looking up at the clouds. Right, this is Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 41 and verse 1. He said, man, you ain't doing nothing. You know how people say, and what you doing? What you doing? He said, what you doing looking at? You just keep looking up all the time. Because it's important, right? Right, this book of Yeshayahu, Isaiah. The book of Isaiah, chapter I think it's 33. Now you go to Isaiah chapter 40. Let's go to 40 and 29. He said, "Why you keep looking at the cloud?" He said, "When you looking at the cloud, you ain't gonna be sowing. When you observing the wind, you ain't gonna be sowing, and when you look at the cloud, you ain't gonna be reaping nothing." And here we go. This is Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 29. He gives power to the faint, because you know when you're you know what happened to the tent that lost its light, the fire on the inside. He said it went faint-hearted. And to him who has no might, he increases strength. He said, when you ain't got no co-op, I'm going to increase your strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. Right, they're in the desert places. But they who wait for Yahuwah shall renew their strength. He said, man, you keep looking at the clouds. He said, why you ain't reaping nothing? All you keep doing is looking at the clouds. Why? Why are you doing that? You know why he's looking at the cloud? Because that's where his help comes from. Look at what it says. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. He said, why you keep looking at the clouds? This Psalms Talim, Isaiah chapter 55 in verse 1. Isaiah 55 and 1. He said, why you keep looking at the clouds? He said, they who observe the wind, they ain't gonna sow. And they who looking at the clouds, man, they not reaping nothing. It's like they ain't sowing and reaping nothing. Right? This Yeshayahu 55:1. Come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. He said, why you keep looking at the clouds? And he who has no money, come buy and eat. He said, you supposed to be sowing and reaping. What you looking at the wind and the clouds for? It makes no sense. Come, buy wine and milk without money and without price. He said, what you sowing and reaping for? Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread? He said, that ain't got no. He said, you spending your money, you spending your wills. And your labor for that which does not satisfy. He's like, why are you observing the wind and the clouds? That makes no sense. You ain't sowing and reaping. That was just born a flesh is flesh. That was born a ruach is ruach. You don't know where that seed going. Because you know that was born of flesh is temporary. That's why we dwell in temporary booths. And these temporary tents that we dwell inside. But eventually you're going to throw that junk in the trash can. That body got to go in the garbage. Right? It's got to go into the fire. But your inward man renewed day by day. But it says right here, why do you spend money for that which is not bread, and labor for that which it does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me. Eat what is good. He said, eat what's good. And what? And delight yourselves in rich food. Incline your ear and come to me. Now you see why Yahushua like, man, come to me. What you doing? Why? That your souls may live. He said, when you observing the wind, he's like, you really moving by the ruach now. He's like, yeah. When you observing the cloud, what you waiting on? He said, come, everyone who thirsts, and come to the waters. Get what he said? Hear that your soul may live. So now he's telling you to hear that your soul may live. And I will make you an everlasting covenant. Oh, Baruch, there we go. Totality, the tilt. Oh, you mean like the covenant he made with Noah? Like the covenant he made with the Aydahs? the covenant he made with Abraham. And guess what? My steadfast love, the sure love of David. Behold, I will make a witness to the peoples, a leader and commander of the peoples. Behold, you shall call a nation that you do not know. A nation that you did not know you shall run to you. Because Yahuwah, your Elohim, and the Kudash one of Yasharal, for he has glorified Kabod you. Seek Yahuwah while he may be found. Now you see, why you sowing and reaping? He said, he that observed the wind, the Ruh, the Ruach. He said, you're not going to be sown. And he that look at the clouds, they're not going to be reaping either. Why? He said, call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to Yahuwah that he may have compassion on him. Where Yahuwah at? Yahuwah is Ruach. He's spirit. And they that worship him must worship him in Ruach and in truth. And guess what it says? Let him return to Yahuwah that he may have compassion on him, because Yahuwah will be with you while you be with him. And to our Elohim, and he will abundantly pardon. Which one do you think is better? Sow and reap? Your natural stuff, your natural food? Or to be abundantly pardoned by Yahuwah? And the only way you're going to do that is by the Ruach. And guess what? For my thoughts are not your thoughts. Now you see why. Nicodemus, hey, I understand you're a teacher in Yasharal, and I understand you know some stuff. But the way I think ain't your thoughts. I don't think like you. That's why they couldn't understand nothing he was saying. My thoughts are not your thoughts. Neither are my ways your ways. I don't do what you do. He said, you hear the sound of the wind? You hear the sound, but you don't know where it's going, though. You don't know where that seed going. You don't know where it's going. When you blow a dandelion flower in the wind, you don't know where that seed going. You just blowing it like you blowing a fire when the fire go out. But it's still hot though. All you gotta do is blow on it a little bit, and that fire come right back. See, sometimes we be thinking the fire on the inside of us is going out. No, it's still hot. You just need somebody to blow into it. You know, like the feminine nature on top of the trees. For as the Shamayim are higher than the Erat, so are my ways higher than your ways. He said, man, Yahuwah should be thinking way higher than what you think. And guess what he says? And my thoughts from your thought, my makashaba from your makashaba. Right? Everything that he does is higher than you. For as rain and snow come down from Shamayim and do not return, but water the earth, because you know when the clouds are full, they empty themselves. He said, why are you looking at the clouds for? He said, come to me and drink. Without price. I ain't got to pay for no water to come from the clouds. When Adam was in the garden, did Adam have to sow and reap? The only thing Adam had to do was just show up. That thing just keep... Right. He just had to watch and guard it. That's it. That thing was doing the thing automatically. There wasn't no cutting and all that stuff. That thing was doing everything automatically. Everything was being done. But then guess what? He fell, and the next one, he said, now you're going to have to sow thorns and thistles, right? Sweat of your brow. You're going to eat bread for the rest of your life. But then all that stuff, he's like, why are you looking at the clouds and the roof and the wind now? You ain't sowing and reaping no more. He's like, It says, do not return, but water the earth, making it bring forth sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So shall the barley that goes out of my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose. He said, such as they are born of the Ruach. I don't know where you hear the sound, but you don't know where it's going now. It's going somewhere. It's going to land somewhere, and it's going to grow somewhere. We just don't know where that's at. But it's going to. And it shall accomplish what I purpose and shall succeed in for which I sent it. Look at what it says. For you shall go out in joy and be led forth in shalom. Now you see why. Before, when they were in Jerusalem with Ahab, they couldn't go out because Assyria was boasting and saying, he's going to take everything you got. He said, we got to take you down. Because I gotta be able to go out in joy. Ain't no joy in that. Simcha. And be led forth in shalom. These are the fruits of the Ruach. As long as them things in your way, you can't. He said, you got to get out the way. Simcha, shalom, we got to go out like that. That's how you got to go out. You got to go out in shalom and joy. The mountains and the hills before you shall break forth into singing, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. All them branches. He said they're going to clap their hands. That's what sukkah is, celebrate, right? Clap your hands, right? But these are all a part of the transformations that take place. And you got to be patient. You got to wait. You got to wait. And guess what? Instead of thorns shall come up cypress. Right? You see cypress trees. I already told Adam, but now Adam like, he said, Adam, why don't you stop sowing? He's like, I'm looking at the clouds, and I'm looking at the wind now, because the seeds be going everywhere now. And the wind now blowing the seeds everywhere, and then the clouds are dropping down rain everywhere on earth. Instead of briars, there shall come out myrtle. I mean, he said, man, there's going to be virgins everywhere. That's what that's the name. It's gonna be virgins everywhere. Yahushua said, my thoughts way higher than your thoughts. And it shall make a name for Yahuwah. Oh. I espouse you to one husband, that they may present you a chaste virgin. To Yahushua Mashiach. And it shall make a name for Yahuwah, an everlasting sign. Oh, that's what totality is. That's what today, why do you think this is the 22nd letter of the alphabet? This is the 22nd day of the 7th month. Totality, it means sign. An everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. He said, this is the sign. He said, it ain't going to be cut off. And you know what people say? Yes, it will. No, it won't. This is Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6. Oh, we got a lot of stuff. Yeah. Matthew chapter 6 and 25. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life. You know what Koph said? Koph was trying to tell you. He said, I will talk directly by Yahushua Mashiach. Matter of fact, I handled that which was from the beginning. I literally touched it. Didn't he say that? He said, I'm waiting for the day dawn, until the day dawn and they start rising in your heart. You got to wait for that. You got to wait, and you got to be patient. Because nobody, when the clouds move away, the wind, the east wind move away the clouds from the sun, nobody will look at the sun no more. He said, till the day dawn and they start rising in your heart. Until it happens for you. But the east wind got to keep blowing. The east wind, you got to keep blowing. The wind got to keep blowing. Verse 25, Matthew 25. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life and what you will wear and what you will drink, nor about the body. He's like, what you doing looking at the wind now? He's like, what you looking at the wind now for? And the clouds. You observing the clouds and the wind now? He said, I ain't got to do that. He said, I can get it without price. He said, I ain't got to do that. He said, I could buy it without a price. The rain, get water to drink, and I can do all this. Know about your body and what you gonna put on. Is not your life more than food, and the body more than clothing? He's like, what you doing looking at the clouds and the wind for now? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap. Oh, he that are looking at the wind will not sow, and he that looking at the clouds, they ain't gonna reap nothing. Because that was born of flesh is flesh. That was born of ruach is ruach. Sowing and reaping is all for the flesh. Because you trust in your tent. You in your flesh. And then now you in outer darkness. Now you in darkness. Now you don't even know. He said your fire not burning on the inside. And the only way the fire gonna be burning on the inside, the wind, the ruh has to blow on your fire. Because you hot on the inside. We just need that wind to light the fire. So the fire will come in your inward man and it'll light and kindle again. And guess what? Is not life yokai more than food, or ikal akla, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds, the oath of the air. They neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns. Man, they don't do none of that stuff. And yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Your Shamayim, higher etheric Abba, feeds them. Are you not more valued than they? He said, man, please. You know how people say, they see you doing that. Man, you ain't doing nothing, you ain't doing nothing. Guess what he said? And which of you, being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? He's like, how many of y'all can add? You can add, like Kazakya, you will remember me how I walked before you. But you get ready to die. Can you do that? I don't know. They got the movie where you can add some life to your forearm and then and give you some points. Verse 28. Why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field. How they grow, they neither toil nor spin. You know what they waiting on? Man, they waiting on the rain to come. Them things waiting on the rain. All these beings you see waiting on the rain. They like, why are you looking at the clouds? You hear them in the morning with the birds, they look at when that sun come up, they be like, they make all the noise, they be waiting. They let you know when you out in the woods in the sukkah booth, you knew. When the sun was getting rise, you hear the birds and the animals just chirping away, going absolutely insane. Chasing each other, playing tag all day. That's what they're doing. They ain't sowing or reaping nothing. But yet, you see how joyful they go out? You see how they're being led in joy and peace? You can see that with the animals. And you see how they're operating? We was out in the sukkah, when you in the sukkah booth, you can see that. When you in your house, you can't see that stuff. You can't even hear it. But it says, yet I tell you, even Shalumin and all his kabod was not arrayed like one of these. Even Shalumin, even though he built a city, a temple, Yahuwah tore all that stuff down. He split it in two. He put all that stuff to rest. And you know what he said? He said, man, why are you observing the wind? He said, you observing the cloud. He said, such as they are born in the Ruach. Because that was just a flesh is flesh. That was just a Ruach is Ruach. Yet I tell you, even Shalumin and all his kabod was not arrayed like one of these. But if Elohim so clothe the grass, clothe the wheat, which is today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how he clothed the wheat with rain and snow, with the shamash, the sun. Because you got to look at the sun. When the clouds move away, you got to look at the sun, and then you got to get the rain and the snow. That's how he clothed you. He said, why are you looking at the clouds? Why are you looking at the wind? Because that's what the ruach is. The ruach is just like the wind, the ruach. And then the clouds drop down rain and snow. All this is Yahuwah's the bar. And guess what? O you of little Amunah. You got little Amunah. That's why you're so worried about sowing and reaping. Right? Your natural food, not even understanding the wind and the clouds. And why Yahuwah put them there. And why he put these things in our heart and our mind. He said, why? Because you're so worried about you got little Amunah. Little Amunah. Because when big Amunah event happen, you're going to have little Amunah. And that little Amunah ain't going to be enough for the other Amunah. Therefore, do not be anxious saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the Goyim seek after these things. That's why the hour of trial coming on everybody. They love that stuff. And your heavenly Father, your higher etheric Father, who created all things by the bar that he's spoken with his thunder and lightning and rain and snow, with his majestic voice, he created all things and established your life and your inward man and your inward being, and light your tent, your ahal with light, made covenant, a marriage covenant with you, bereaved, and he said it's an everlasting covenant I will not forget. When Yahuwah make a vow to you, he not changing it. He not changing that vow he made with us. So please don't be like, oh, I'm going to change my vow. Yahuwah's like, I made a covenant with you. Return to me and I'll return to you. Yahuwah, I made this covenant with you, bereaved. There's no, oh yeah, Yahuwah still remembers his covenant. All he got to do is look at it. Why do you think he said the eyes of Yahuwah upon the righteous and the ears are open to their prayers? But the face of Yahuwah is against them who do evil. Why? Because you left my covenant. So now I got to get you back to my covenant. Return to me and I'll return to you. Bereaved. That's what this is. That's what 2 is. That's what the 22nd day of the 8th month is. 22nd day of the 7th month is. It's the 8th day of Chag sukkah. Whatsoever things are true, just, excellence, anything of praise, all these 8 things, think on me. Think on how I think. Because my thoughts are not your thoughts and my ways are not your ways. They're not. If you look at the trees on the top, it's lovely. When you look at the birds and how beautiful they are in colors, they like the rainbow. You got the blue ones, you got the brown, you got the yellow ones, you got they got red ones. You start to see this stuff. They got green, right? They got all these different colors, just like the bow in the cloud. He said you'll miss it though. And then when you do that, you'll be missing Yahuwah too. But guess what it says? He says, for your Father, he said, your heavenly Father knows what you have need of them all. I already know you need all of it. But seek first the Malkuth of Elohim and his righteousness. Why you observing the clouds and the wind? Seeking first the Malkuth, and all these things will be added to you. And all these things will be added to you, right? Right, so this is the book of, actually going to the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel. The book of Daniel. The book of Daniel. Yeah, we're going to Daniel. The book of Daniel. I think it's Daniel. Yeah, book of Daniel chapter, let's go to Daniel chapter 6. Daniel chapter 6. And verse 1. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be brought throughout his whole kingdom, and over them 3 high officials, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps should give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other of high officials and the satraps because of an excellent ruach that was in him. That was just born of flesh is flesh, and that was just born of ruach is ruach. And the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground of complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could not find no ground for complaint or any fault. He was just because he was faithful, and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his Elohim. That's the only way. And that's what they're looking for today, between male and female. They searching for it. They looking for it right now. And being that they're looking for all these things, he said, you got to be real careful. real careful. Why? You gotta be real careful. Because once you understand that, then you understand why Yahuwah put people in certain places, and why you need to understand why you need to be in a certain state of mind. You gotta understand that, right? You gotta understand that. Right, so going to Bereshit, Genesis chapter 33 and 3. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 33. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 33. Genesis chapter 33 and verse 2. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 33 and verse 33 and 2. Let's go to 33 and 1. Bereshit, Genesis 33 and 1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Asu was coming, and 400 men with him. That's 400 men. What's the last letter of totality? It equals to 400. It do. Equals to 400. Totality, sign, mark, signature, 4-coin, covenant. Right? And Esau coming with 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 female servants, right? And guess what? And he put the servants with their children in front. He put the servants with their children in front. Then Leah and his children and her children and Rachel and Yusuf last of all. And guess what? He himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times. He went before them, and he himself went before them, in front of them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came to his brother Yusuf. He bowed himself to the ground 7 times. But Asu ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Asu lifted up his eyes and saw the woman and the children, he said, "Who are these with you?" And Jacob said, "The children whom Elohim graciously given your servants." And guess what he said? Then the servants drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise and her children drew near and bowed down. And the last Yusuf and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. And Asu said, "What do you mean by all this company that I met?" And Jacob said, "To find favor in the sight of my master." But Asu said, "I have enough. My brothers, keep what you have for yourselves." He said, "I already got enough." Jacob said, "No, please. If I found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand." From my what? From my hand. This Bereshit chapter 10, 33 and 10. Genesis chapter 33 and 10. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 33 and verse 10. What do you think that word is? Bereshit 33 and 10, that word for hand is Yad. Open right hand. Why do you think we did kafar? He said, "Receive this from my hand." It's the 10th day of the 7th month. And now we're in the 8th day of Chag sukkah, the 22nd day of the 7th month, which equals to what? 400. Matter of fact, you start to see the transition of the 22 letters of the alphabet. Right here in your face. Right here in your face, right? Right here in your face, right? So this is the prayer of Yusuf, right quick. Back to the prayer of Yusuf. Actually, the prayer of Jacob first. Prayer of Jacob, and it says, prayer of Jacob, verse 17. It says, "Fill me with wisdom, Hakmah, empower me, Yahuwah, Master. Fill my heart with good things, Yahuwah, as an earthly malakim. He said, as an earthly malakim. As having become immortal. He said, as becoming immortal. And guess what? As received the gift which is from you. As having received the gift which is from you. What did he just give Esau? He said, receive this gift from my yard. He told Esau to receive this gift from my yard. That's what Yaakov did. And get what he said, as having received the gift from you. Amen, amen. And get what he said. Say the prayer of Yaakov 7 times to the north. How many times did Yaakov bow to Esau when he saw him? He left him beside. He bowed 7 times to the ground. He bowed 7 times to the ground before Esau got there. And he said, say this prayer 7 times to the north and to the east. Look northward, southward, eastward, and westward. He said, bow your head. Yaakov bowed to Esau 7 times. Can you imagine bowing your head to the ground 7 times? And then you pray the prayer of Yaakov to the north. And then bow your head 7 times. And then you pray the prayer of Yaakov to the east. And when all of them saw Esau, the whole family, even the servants with their children, bowed down. Leah and her children bowed down. Yaakov bowed down, and then Rachel and her children bowed down. And Yusuf and Rachel came last. And why he came last, right? So this is the book of you said why? People have no idea. This is the book of Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 8, and verse Psalms chapter 8 and verse 1. Psalms chapter 8, Tehillim, Psalm chapter 8 and verse 1. Psalm chapter 8 and verse 1. It says, O Yahuwah, Master, how majestic is your name in all the earth. He said, look how majestic his voice, his call, his voice. That's how it gets to the end of the earth. If you don't speak, male and female, then guess what? His voice ain't never going to get to the end of the earth. And guess what? You have set your kabod above the Shamayim. He said, you set your kabod above all the 7 heavens. Shaby'ay Shamayim. You have set your kabod above the heavens. Out of the mouth of babies and infants. You have established strength because of your foes. If you say you don't humble yourself like a child, ain't no way you can believe stuff like this. You got to become like a child. You got to be sitting at his feet. Like Ruth was sitting at Boaz's feet. Like Yahushua was in the house and the woman was sitting at his feet. He was telling Martha, Martha, you're troubled about many things. Just like book of Hazon, book of Revelation, when he talked about he said, I saw the sun. He said the moon was sitting at his feet. And amazingly, the sun and the moon, they come on the same procession, but then the sun go first and then the moon comes second at night. He said, I saw the moon sitting at his feet. Where else are you going to be sitting at? You know they say, no, I don't want to become like a yalit. That's what women say today. I don't want to humble myself and become a shifka in a house of Dawid. I don't want to become a servant. But you said you're going to bow to the sun, though. You're going to be a servant to the sun, though. I ain't never going to be a servant to a child, a son. That's why Yahuwah already told you about this. He said what? And get what it says. Verse 2. Out of the mouth of babies and infants, you have established strength because of your foes to still the enemy and the avenger. When I looked at your heavens, the work of your fingers. We talked about his fingers, but he says the moon and the stars. What do you mean his fingers? in the book of Joseph and Asenath, when Yusuf went in their house, he said he swore he had a crown on his head. He had 12 rays of light. Oh, you mean he had 12 rays of light? And you know, on the fourth day of creation, he made the Shamash to rule by day and the Yarek to make rule by night, and he made the Kukab also. So what do you think he's talking about? When I looked at the Shamayim's, the work of your fingers, what do you think he's talking about? He's talking about the Shamash, the sun, which you have set in place. What do you think the father does? What do you think the husband does? And then he says, what is man that you are mindful of him? Why you give man all this dang power? Adam. Why you give Adam all this power? Why you give Adam all this power? Why? What is Adam that you are mindful of him? And the son of Adam, son of man, that you care for him? Why are you caring for these people? You have made him a little lower than the heavenly beings, than the Malachim. He's like, we Shamayim, we higher etheric beings. You made him lower than us. You made him in the south. They lower than us. But guess what? And crown him with kabod and honor. You don't put him over us. You gave him kabod and honor. You have given him dominion over the works of your hand. Why you put, we the Shamayim beings, you gave him dominion over all your hand. Why he think he put the Shamash? Because even Yusuf already told you, or he say, Yitzhak, he said, so I, the Shamash, your mother, the moon, and your brethren, the stars, rule. So you indeed rule over us? So you telling me you're going to rule over us? That's what Malachi's saying. So you saying you're going to rule over us? You going to rule over that? You have given him dominion over the works of your hands, and you have put all things under his feet. When I looked at the Shamayims and the works of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in their place, in place. He said, you put all these things on your feet. Why do you think the woman was at his feet? Why do you think children are at Yahushua's feet? Why do you think your children and women are supposed to be at their feet? That they may learn, just like the book of Revelation say, and know that I have loved you. But they ain't never gonna learn it until they sit at your feet. They're not gonna learn it. Why do you think they bow to Esau's feet? You think it was about Esau? He said every knee gonna bow, every tongue gonna confess that Yahushua is master to the kabod of Yahuwah. And Esau brought 400 soldiers. That's totality. That's the 22nd letter of the alphabet. That is today. This is the 22nd day of the 7th month. And they bowed to Asu. Matter of fact, you thought it was talking about him? It was talking about Yahushua Mashiach. Because you think you got eternal life. It's speaking about him. That's why he said every knee gonna bow and every tongue gonna confess that Yahushua is master to the kabod of Yahuwah. And then he gonna say, verse 6, you have given him dominion over all the works of your hands and put all things under his feet. Why you think you're gonna bow at his feet? You're gonna bow at Yahushua's feet. He said you're gonna bow to a man's feet. Whether you want to do it or not. In this physical reality. He said you're gonna do it when you come back here. You and the children. He said, you're going to do it. Get what he said? You put all things on his feet, all sheep and oxen and also beasts of the field. You say you gave that to Adam? The Malachi are like, what in the world is going on? We are higher to being. We Mikal, Uriel, Raphael, Gabaral. And many others that I'm not going to name right now. But they say, hold up. And it says, and all the oxen, sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the Shamayims, and the fish of the sea, the God of Ramis, right? So you making them right back in your image and likeness that you made in the beginning? By the blood of Yahushua Mashiach? You putting Adam back in position again? You putting Adam, who sinned in the gun, back in position again, but Shemjaza, Azazel, Osbal, and all the other ones, you put them in eternal, you got them reserved for fire, but then you hold up the whole thing for Adam? You hold up judgment for Adam? They don't deserve anything. Look at the world we got to patrol, and we got to watch over, and we got to help. Right? Understand? And he said, and the birds of Shaby'ay and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Yahuwah, our master, how majestic is your name in all the earth. He said, how majestic is your name in all the earth. The Malaki like, who can do such a thing? He said, you gonna do that? All right, this is the prayer of Yusuf. Pseudepigrapha, Volume 2. This is the prayer of Joseph. We almost finished. Prayer of Joseph. Prayer of Joseph, Yusuf. There's a lot more. Prayer of Joseph, Yusuf, chapter, fragment A. It says, verse 1. It says, I, Yaakov, who is speaking to you, am also Yasharal, and Malaka Elohim, and an angel of Malaka Elohim, and a ruling Ruach. Abraham and Isaac were created before any work. He said, before I was even here. And guess what? But I, Yaakov, who men call Jacob, Yaakov, but whose name is Yasharal, am he who Elohim called Yasharal, which means a man seeing Elohim. And get what it says. And it says, because I am the firstborn of every living thing to whom Elohim has given life. He said, I'm the firstborn of everything. He said, I'm the firstborn. Why would he say that? And when I was coming up from the Syrian Mesopotamia, Uriel, the Malak of Elohim came forth and said that I, Yasharal, had descended to the earth and had tabernacled among men. He said they tabernacled among men. He said you descended to the earth and you tabernacled among men. We just got through doing sukkah. He said you pitched your tent here. And guess what? And that I had been called by the name of Yaakov. He envied me. He did what? He envied me. Why do you think they brought Yahusha? They said, for envy, they delivered him over to you. That's what they did, because he knew. For envy, that's what they did for him. They delivered him over. Why do you think Yasharal did it? Why do you think Yasharal delivered Yahusha over? Because of envy. And guess what he said? And he envied me and fought with me and wrestled with me, saying that his name and the name that is before every malak was to be above mine. Was to be above mine. He's like, man, you're supposed to be above my name. He said, and get what he said. And get what he said. I told him his name and what rank he held among the sons of Elohim. Are you not Uriel, the 8th after me? What today is? This is the 8th day. He said, you the 8th after me. So what was the 7th? What were we supposed to do for the first 7 days? Or we supposed to tabernacle? How you say? We supposed to sukkah for 7 days. And then, after the 8th day, you after me. And guess what? And I, Yasharal, the Ark Malakim of the power of Yahuwah, and the chief captain among the sons of Elohim, am I not Yasharal? He's like, I was way before you. We were doing this thing before you got here. But guess what he said? The first minister before the face of Elohim. And I called upon my Elohim by the in his inextinguishable name. Oh, now you see why the fire on the inside had to be burning inside of your tent during sukkah. With Yahuwah's inextinguishable name. Or you're going to be casting out of darkness, because Yahuwah is light. And in him is no darkness at all. And guess what? For I have read the tablets of Shaby'ay, and all that shall befall you and your sons. Right? So this is the book of. But he said, Yasharal, he said, I was before you. And then he said, look at all the things that you said. He said, wasn't I before you? I was doing this before you on the 8th day. Right? So this is book of Yuchanan chapter 7 and verse 37. John chapter 7 and verse 37. John chapter 7 and verse 1. Let's go to John chapter 7. And after this, Yahushua went about to Galilee, and he would not go to Judea. The Yahudim were seeking to kill him. Now the Yahudim feast of Booth Sukkah was at hand. It was at hand. So his brothers said to him, leave here and go to Yehuda, that your disciples also may see the works that you are doing. For no one does works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you want to be known. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. He said, if you're doing all this. For even his brothers didn't believe in him. That's the only reason they do it. They don't believe in you. Guess what he said? Yahushua said to them, my time has not yet come, but yours is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about its works are evil. You go up to the feast called, I am not going up to the feast, for my time has not yet come. So that is 7 days. They were in the booth, right? They were in the booths, right? Everybody was in the booths, right? And everything they were doing, right? That's what everybody was doing, right? And that was 7 days before, right? 7 days, right? So here we going. This is verse 736. Actually, Yuchanan 7:35. The Yahudim said to one another, where does this man intend to go that we will not find him? Does he intend to go to the dispersion among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? What does he mean by saying, you will seek me and you will not find me? And where I am, you cannot come. On the last day of the feast, the great day. Oh, you mean 7 days after? He's like, we were doing this before. He said, aren't you the 8th after me? The 8th day? That's what your code just said to Oreo. And get what he said. On the last day of the feast, the great day, Yahushua stood up and cried out, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. We said, why are you up looking at the clouds for? Why are you observing the wind? He said, come buy from me without price. He said, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He said, because I'm Oreo. Whosoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water, because I'm Oreo. What did Oreo say? He said, man, everybody, he said, my name should be above you. Anyone Oreo said? Oreo said, my name should be above your name, Yasharal. You know what he said? You thought your Oreo was playing. Oreo was dead serious. Oreo wasn't playing. But he was dead, he was understanding. Nobody understood, but your code really didn't understand. But he was trying to let you know, my name supposed to be above your name. He said, why are you caring about these people? How great is your name? Your majestic is your name. You know what they said? We read in the book of Psalms. He said, how majestic is your name? What is man that what is Adam? You are mindful of him. He said, I remember. That's what Yahuwah is. Yahuwah remembers Zakar, Adam. He remembered Adam, and he remembered when he made him in his image and likeness. That's why I remember how I made it when I first made it. And I just want it back the way it was. before he fell, before he committed sin, before he went against my commandments. I just want it back the way it was. And ain't nothing wrong with that. It ain't nothing wrong with that. Man trying to make it seem like it's something wrong with that or something. I just wanted it back the way it was. Back when you first believed. See, that's how it was. I just want it back. And guess what it said? Whoever believes in me, as the scripture said, out of his heart, his inward man, his lave, his yetzer, his imaginations, will flow rivers of living water. I want it back the way it like Aydah, 4 rivers, 1 river. He said, why? Now this he said about the Ruach. Oh, that which is born of Ruach is Ruach. That which is born of flesh is flesh. He said, I'm talking about the Ruach, man. Because if you observe the clouds and you looking at the wind, he said, man, you ain't sowing and reaping. And get what? Whom those who believed in him were to receive. For as yet the Ruach had not yet been given, because Yahusha had not yet been glorified. Kabod. And he said, what? Right, so this book of Bereshit, chapter 4, verse 1. We almost finished. Actually, 3. 2 and 1, actually. 2 and 6. 2 and 6. This thing Right, so this is the book of Bereshit, chapter 2, and verse 9. And out of the Adamah, the ground, Yahuwah made to spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life, Aydahchay, and it says, was in the midst of the garden, right? That's what got to be in the midst of you. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He said, and the other tree too. A river flowed out of Aydah. He said, a river. So that one river. That one. And watered the garden. Only one river did that. And then it divided into 4 rivers. So you got one river. One voice. Right? And then it went into 4 rivers. And amazing, what is the last letter of the totality is? 22nd letter of the alphabet is 2. 2. It means 4 corners. Northward, southward, eastward, westward. As a matter of fact, equals to 400 equals to 4. And he said one river came into another river. 4 rivers. And then those 4 rivers did what? They watered the whole thing. And it says the name of the first was Pisan, and the one that flowed around the whole land of Havilah, and where there was gold. And the gold of the land was good, and bdellium and onyx stones are there. The name of the second river, Gihon, it is the one that flowed around the whole land of Cush. And the name of the third river was Tigris, that flowed east of Assyria. And the 4th river, Euphrates, right? So look at 4 rivers, right? Amazingly, you don't see anything about the 4 corners of the earth. You don't see about the four gates, 3 to the north, 3 to the south, 3 to the east, and 3 to the west. You don't see all this stuff. You just see Cush, Assyria, Euphrates, right? He said, put your thinking caps on. Put your thinking caps on. You need to get some aluminum foil. You know that aluminum foil they do on signs? And they put the aluminum foil in their head to block. They say, we gotta block the signal from getting in. Because they be putting all these things in here, you be like, I need to put the foil, aluminum foil hat on my head so I can block the signals from getting in my head. Because I gotta make sure I'm thinking around here properly, right? Because this is a whole game out here. And they be playing games with it. But that's the whole point. But he said it went into 4 rivers. He said when you look at that one river, that's the Yahuwah's river that comes out from his throne. And then he goes into 4 rivers, the 4 corners of the earth. The 4 Malachis sit in the 4 corners of the earth. And he said in the 3 gates, 3 to the north, 3 to the south, 3 to the east, and 3 to the west, for the Shalosh Matah, the 12 tribes of Yasharal. But a lot of the stuff that we see, we said, man, right? And all this is all part of it. But it went in the 4 rivers. It's totality too. It's totality too. And you would say, if you believe on me, as the scripture said, I was belly shall flow rivers of living water. Because that river that came out of Aydah was alive. It was alive. And it brought life. That water brought life. The only way you're going to get that water, you got to have rain and snow. Matter of fact, the only way a river is going to go into 4 parts, let me show you how a river goes into 4 parts. Right? And he said, how does a river go into 4 parts? The only way a river goes into 4 parts is this is how a river goes into 4 parts. Right? Let me show you. Right. So this is the book of Exodus. This is the book of Exodus, Shamuth. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna time before. The book of Exodus, chapter 10 and verse 13. 10 and 12. Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, 10 and 12, stretch out your hand, your yard, over the land. Man, that yard is very significant. People say, man, that 10th letter of the alphabet ain't got nothing to do with me. That 10th day of the 7th month ain't got nothing to do with me. I said, okay. Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out your yard over the land of Mizraim for the locusts, so that they may come upon the land of Mizraim, and every plant in the land, all that the hail has left. So Moshe stretched out his staff over the land of Mizraim, and Yahuwah brought an east wind upon the land all that day and all that night. Why you say the prayer you're cold? And guess what he said? And when it was morning, the east wind had brought the locusts. Right? He said, what? The east wind brought all the locusts. How you think that river went into 4 parts? You know, when the wind blow against a river, it split the river in 4 parts. When the wind comes, the root. He said, why are you observing the wind? Why are you observing the clouds? Because when you look at the clouds, it rains. And then when the river flows, then the wind blow it and blow the river in 4 parts. And you be like, that was born of flesh is flesh. That was born of ruach is ruach. Everything's born, that was born of flesh is flesh. Those 4 rivers were born by the ruach. Right, so this is the book of Exodus chapter 14, verse 9. Then the Malak of Elohim was going before the host of Yasharal. They were going before a Malak. You know, what is man? Why you care for them? What is Adam that you so mindful of him? Why you love him so much? Why you care about him so much? And the Malak of Elohim, who was going before the host of Yasharal, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved before them and stood behind them. Why are you looking at the clouds? Why are you looking at the clouds? He that observes the clouds ain't reaping nothing. He that looking at the wind ain't sowing nothing. What you looking at the clouds for? And get what he said. And the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Mizraim and the host of Yasharal. What you looking at the clouds for? And there was the cloud, and there was the cloud and the darkness. And guess what? And it lit up the sky. You mean the cloud lit up the sky? You mean the lightning, thunder, and everything else? Because he making clouds his chariots. Man, that thing will lit up the whole sky. Man, Yahuwah's majestic voice. It lit up the whole sky. Matter of fact, man, it was thundering and lightning. Matter of fact, and guess what? Without one coming near the other all night. Man, it was just lit up the whole sky. Abrakub kanaf halak ruah. He said, Yahusha left in the cloud. Why are you looking at the clouds? Why are you staring at the clouds? Right? What you looking at the wind for? What is all this about? Why are you not sowing and reaping no more? Man, you know, Shaloma and all his kabod was not, he started talking like Yahusha, and you gonna get people upset. And it lit up the sky without one coming near the other all night. Then Mashah stretched out his hand, his yard over the sea. He put out his right hand. Now you see, you say, why you doing kafar? He put out his yard over the sea, and Yahuwah drove the sea back by a strong east wind all that night. Why are you looking at the clouds and the wind? He that observed the cloud, they not reaping nothing. He that observed the wind, they not sowing. That was just born of Ruach. Flesh is flesh. That was just born of Ruach is Ruach. And he made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. Oh, that's how you know in Bereshit. He said how the river went from one river to 4 rivers. How that happened? Abraham, look northward, southward, eastward, and westward. Look at the 4 corners. And the people of Yashua went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the waters being a wall to them on the right and on the left. You mean east and west? And all that's important, right? All that's important, right? All that's important, right? Right, this is already how y'all mean? 2 Chronicles 7, 11 through 12. Thus Shalom finished the house of Yahuwah and the king's house. All that Shalom had planned to do for the house of Yahuwah in his own house, he successfully accomplished. He's like, he successfully accomplished it. And when he had finished that? Then Yahuwah appeared to Shalom in the night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. A bayit. When I shut up Shamayim so that there is no rain. Why are you looking at the clouds? Man, I'm waiting on Yahuwah. What you talking about? You get what he said? Or command the locusts to devour the land. Man, I'm looking at the east wind. Why are you looking at the wind for? Man, I'm looking at the east. Matter of fact, I'm looking to the north, and I'm looking to the east. And I'm looking for some rain, and I'm looking for some wind. But he said, ain't nothing happening. And guess what he said? Or send pestilence among my people. If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from Shamayim, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal the land. I will abundantly pardon. Now my eyes will be open, and the ears attentive to the prayer that is made in this place. For now I have chosen and consecrated this house, that my name may be there forever. That his majestic name, how majestic is your name inside of a human being? Because when we was inside of a building, everybody transgressed. Everybody forsook his name. But when it's inside of a human body, when it's inside of your tent, your ahal, the fire never go out. Matter of fact, how majestic is your name? What is Adam that you're so mindful of him? Why you care about them so much? Because when I put my laws in their heart and their mind, when I put this covenant, that berith in their heart and their mind, when I put the totality on their foreheads, they not going to leave me. They not going to leave my name. They going to always remember me. Night and day. They're going to always remember me. And guess what? Then I will hear from charming and forgiveness, and now my eyes will be open to my ears and attentive to their prayer that it may be made in this place. For now I have chosen and consecrated this house, for my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will be there for all time. That's a covenant, bereaved. You know how a man makes a covenant with a woman? He said, my heart, my lady, my heart, and my eyes will be there all the time. be like, man, ain't nobody can love all these people at one time. Man, you really don't understand Yahuwah. You really don't understand him. Ain't no way a man, I'm telling you, Ahab is masculine. That's Aleph, right? Aleph, right? It starts with an Aleph. Ahab is masculine. The Ha is feminine. Ahaba is, at the end of Ahaba is feminine. Ahab is masculine. There's a lot that goes into a man's love. There's a lot that go into it. There's a whole bunch. He said he got a lot of love to give. That's why people have no idea. That's why he say 7 women gonna take hold of 1 man, because a man got a lot of love to give. A lot of people don't believe this stuff. And that equals to 8. Again. And what today is? Verse 17, and as for you, if you will walk before me as Dawid my father walked, doing according to all that I have commanded you, and keeping my statutes and my rules, then I will establish my royal throne as a covenant for Dawid your father, saying, you shall not lack a man, Adam, to rule Yasharal. Now you see why Yahushua say, remember Yasharal, what Yasharal say? I was before you 7 days before. Didn't they say that? But then when Yahushua came on the scene in Yuchanan chapter 7, what did he say? He said, he that believes on me, as the scripture said, I'm Oriel. Out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. He said, man, you ain't never going to fail a man to rule on the throne of Yasharal. Because he ruled over Yasharal. If you be the king of Yasharal, let him come down from the cross. He said, let him come down from the cross. Right? That word for humble in that verse is kana. It means to be humble, to be subdued. Now you see why he said, I'm going to rule over Yasharal. It did not feel Yahushua to rule over Yasharal. To humiliate, to humble, to bring down, to be in subjection. As the body is subject to Mashiach Yahushua, so that the wives be subject to their husband and everything. He said, at their feet. Right, Deuteronomy 8:3, and he humbled you and led you to hunger and fed you with manna. That's why he said, wait, you ain't sowing and reaping, ain't you? You keep looking at the cloud and you keep looking at the cloud and the wind. And he humbled you and fed you with man, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he may make you know that man does not live by bread alone. He said, why you labor for that which is not bread? But man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. He's like, everything lived by every word. The Malachi lived by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Yaakov, Yasharal, Hanuk, Al-Yahu, Yahusha himself, Kaf, the Shalush Shalakim, Shalush Matai, Yasharal, Yehuda. All everybody, even the Malachi with the 7 seals, the 7 teruahs, the Shaby'ay teruah, the 7 trumpets, right? And the 7 vials, 7 bowls. All of them live by the word of Yahuwah. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Male and female live by the word of Yahuwah. Deborah lived by the word of Yahuwah. Huldah lived by the word of Yahuwah. Leah, Rachel, Rebecca, Sarah, Naam lived by the word of Yahuwah. Kua lived by the word of Yahuwah. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And everybody who get eternal life gonna live by the word of Yahuwah. And there ain't nothing you can do about it. Because Yahuwah said, I am Yahuwah, I change not. Right? That word for humble is anah. And it starts with an ayin. It means humble, to be put down, to weaken oneself, to be humiliated. That's the whole point. Afflicted. Right? Afflicted. Mostly Proverbs 29:23. One's pride will bring them low, but he who is a lowly ruach will obtain honor. That's why you're at his feet. His regard. His regard. Shafal. It means that word for low is shafal. It means to humiliate it, humble. It means depressed, humble, low, humble. Nobody want to stay humble. They want to continue. They say, man, I want to be exalted. Nah, you gotta stay down. You gotta stay in a humble state, right? Because he said, one's pride will bring you low. It's gonna bring you down now. Eventually, your pride of not wanting to be willingly humble and lowly will bring you down. Trust me. Yahuwah has no respect of person. He don't care who you are. I don't care, man. People have no idea. And then people are going to continue to fight him, and that's the worst thing you're going to do. Right? He said, you learn your lesson after you fight Yahuwah a couple of times. You be like, I should never. You should never fought anything he said. You like, man, if I'd have never did that, if I'd have never did that, if I'd have just listened. No, he said, no, that's what you get. Psalm 37, 7 through 11. Be still, therefore, and wait patiently for him. See, what are you looking at the clouds for? He said, you ain't sowing and reaping. You know why? Because you being still. He's like, what are you doing? You ain't sowing and reaping. What you looking at the clouds? That was born of flesh is flesh. That was just born of ruach is ruach. Wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself of the one who prospers in the way, who's sowing and reaping. Oh, the one who carries out evil device, who's doing wickedness. Right. Refrain from anger. You know why you got to refrain from anger? That requires patience. That's what Yahuwah got. Forsake wrath. That's what Yahuwah does every single day. Fret not yourself, it tends only to evil. For evildoers shall be cut off. He said, you're going to give you an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Why would you cut off? He says, shall inherit the Aydahs. He says, those who wait for Yahuwah shall inherit the Aydahs. In just a little while, the wicked will be no more, though you look carefully at his place, but he will not be there. But the meek, the Aydah, the meek shall inherit the Aydahs and delight themselves in the abundance of shalom, right? So that word for be still is daman, right? To be silent, to be done, to be make quiet, to be astonished, to stop, is to stop. To be or grow dumb, silent, to be still, to be silenced. That word for meek is Aydah. The poor, it says poor, humble. It starts with an ayin. It's poor, humble, meek, needy, and meek. Right? It says, but the meek shall, it says, delight themselves in abundance of shalom. Right? Completeness, soundness, quiet, tranquility, peace from war, welfare, health, prosperity, completeness, soundness, friendly, a friend. Proverbs 16, 19 through 20. It is better to be of a shafal ruach with the Aydah than to divide the spoil with the proud. Whosoever gives thought to the debar will discover good. And Barak is he who trusts in Yahuwah. Are you going to trust in your tent? You're going to trust in your ahal, your natural man, your flesh? He said, you're going to trust in that? He said, you trust that. Proverbs 22 and 4. The reward of humility and the fear of Yahuwah is riches, honor, and life. That's what it is. Anua, meekness, humility, meekness. The word of being merciful and lenient. Right? Book Micah 6 through 8. He has told you, O Adam. He said, why do you care about Adam? What is man Adam that you so mindful of him? That you care for him? You made him a lower than the heavenly beings and the Malachim and crown him above all us. Why? He told you, O Adam, what is good and what does Yahuwah require but to do justice, mishpat. And he said, man, they forsook that. And to love, kasid, kindness, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. He said to walk humbly. You got to walk humble. The greatest among these shall be as a young and leader is the one who serves. He said, one of you people have lifted up your heel against me. You lift up your heel. When Yahushua came to wash their feet, And he was walking humble. Then somebody looked, he said, one of y'all lift y'all heel up again. He said, you don't like me? He said, I'm wise like a serpent. I'm just like the Nakash. He said, why are you washing my feet? Because I'm showing you what you're going to have to do. And when you become humble and meek and lowly, they're going to bruise your head just like they did mine. They're going to beat you in your face just like they did mine. And they're going to do the same thing to you just like they did mine. Because I'm the Nakash, and they just immediately go to the gun, and they just immediately think, you know how people say, I'm going to bruise your head, you Nakash, but they're not even knowing. Who was the only person in the garden after Yahuwah cast judgment that was quiet the whole time? The Nakash, the serpent. He was quiet the whole time. Why do you think he said, be still and wait patiently for Yahuwah? Because he was in quiet. When judgment comes, he was in quiet. And he was the only person that ain't say nothing. Why do you think he ain't say nothing when they were asking him questions? And he remained silent. Why do you think they beat him in the head? Because they devised evil to those who are quiet in the land, because he was wise like a Nakash, a serpent. And when you become humble and meek and lowly and shall fall, then they're going to beat you in the head too. They're going to do the same thing to you, because the servant is no better than his master. It's the same thing. It's no different. It's no different. That's why he commands us to stay lowly and humble, both male and female. Right? The word for humbly is sanah. To be humble, to be modest. That's modest apparel. It has nothing. He said, be modest. Sarah didn't wear all the things that he say modest apparel until she went through that trial. Because I told you that them trials will take you through some things. You're like, man, I don't want to go through that again. I want to be 2 years in Pharaoh's palace. And then he can try to get me to commit adultery. And then Abraham got to pray because in the Dead Sea Scrolls, she was wearing all this stuff. She was like, man, I can't do that no more. Man, you almost got both of us killed. Man, almost got me to commit adultery and my husband killed. So let me put some clothes on. That's the only reason she put on modest clothes. She put on clothes to cover herself. Because them trials she went through. Before that, when they ain't going to Mizraim, they had nothing to worry about. They weren't thinking about that stuff. But then when they showed in there, Mizraim Ham ain't got no fear of Elohim whatsoever. That's the only reason she did it. That's the only reason she did it. But she adorned herself like this, though. She loved kindness and walked humbly with her Elohim. To humble, to be modest, to be lowly, to show humility. Modest, humble, lowly, humble, humiliated. Right? That's what trials do. That's what tribulation does. It teaches you patience. You ain't gonna get no patience without tribulation. When you gotta go from living in luxury to living in the forest somewhere, that's why we're in the sukkah, and you in the cold, and you in a cold river, you ain't warm no more, and you gotta do all these things to kindle a fire and do all these things that you normally will not have to do every single day. Then you'll find yourself, man, am I really humble like I said? Am I really sanah, kana, anua, anah like I said? You start to realize that. You ain't gonna realize that until you do that. When you hear all the animals just calling out, and you be like, I ain't never heard nothing like that before. Exactly. What is that? Exactly. Lest you can hear, you understand what's piped their heart, and they give it a certain note or distinction of sound. How will you know what animal it is? He said you get your senses back. Matthew 6, 22 through 23. The eye is the lamp of the body, the iron. So if that eye is healthy, the whole body is full of light. You mean the fire on the inside of the tent is burning. It's burning. It's burning now. But if your eye is evil, The whole body is full of darkness. Now your whole tent done lost its fire on the inside. This will be ready to aid you. You full of darkness. Your iron, your sight, you can't even see in the dark because your inward man is not lit with fire in your tent. So therefore you can't see in the dark. Because Yahuwah is light. And in him is no darkness at all. So is in you darkness? If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? If your eye is evil, how great is the darkness on the inside of you? And people say, what? This is Yeshayahu 8, Isaiah 8, 18 through 20. Behold, I and the children you have given me are for signs, importance in Yasharal from Yahuwah of hosts. What today is? The 22nd letter of the alphabet. The two, right? It means sign. Sign, signature, four corners. It means covenant, writing. It means many other things. But all this is a part of your belief. You are a sign in the earth. That's what the day means. And guess what? In Yasharal from Yahuwah of hosts, who dwells in Mount Sion, in the north. You pray to the north 7 times. And you pray to the east. In the north. Look, Abraham, look northward, southward, eastward, west. Look at the whole earth. The whole earth is full of my kabod. There's lightning and storms and earthquakes everywhere. The whole earth is trembling. It ain't just in that one piece of property. It's everywhere. The meek, the Aydah gonna inherit the odds. It says, and when they say to you, inquire of mediums and necromancers and that chirp and mutter, he said necromancers. Should not a people seek after their Elohim? Should they inquire of the dead on the behalf of the living? To the teaching, it says to the teaching and to the testimony. If they do not speak according to this debar, this word, it is because they have no light, no dawn in them. They said the day star and the day star haven't arisen in their heart. They have no light in them. Their lamp, their tent has no fire. They still in darkness. They got no fire lit. Because you're supposed to be something. You're supposed to keep your lamps continuing to burn. You're supposed to keep your fire burning. You have a morning and evening sacrifice as priest to Elohim. Right? This is where it says, behold, I and the children have given you for portness. That word for portness is mofah. It means mo faith. It means a miracle, a sign, a miracle, a token, a future event, a miracle, a symbol, a miracle to be wondered at. That's what we're supposed to be. That's what we are. Omen, right? That word for omen is an event or point of good or evil, prophetic significance, right? That's why he said the testimony of Yahushua is the ruach of prophecy. Conspicuousness is the state of what? Quality of being easily seen or noticed, of attracting attention due to striking features and outstanding quality. That's why your tent got to have a fire on the inside. You got to be burning continually. To offer to Yahuwah continually, which is your spiritual worship. Sirach 3, 17 through 23. My son and daughter, go on thy business in meekness. So shalt thou be beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more yourself, may humble yourself, and thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. He say, Kana, Anua, Ana, Sana. Many are in high places and renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek, the Aydah. For the power of Yahuwah is great. We just read about it, book of Aydah. He said, man, his thunder and lightning, his voice shake the earth. Matter of fact, he make my heart turn upside down. And he said, when Miriam heard the salutation, the greeting, when all Yahshua heard the greeting of Miriam, she said, a child leaped in her womb. And man, that child jumped. Man, it turned upside down. You know how a baby do. It be up one way and then turn around in your stomach. It turn around. And he said, hand come up. You'd be like, man. Right? And all this stuff moving. Why? Because that's the whole point. That's what fire do. You ever see fire? For the power of Yahuwah is great, and honor with the lowly. Seek not out things that are too hard for thee, neither search for things that are above thy strength. He said, don't do it. Don't search for things above you, what you can carry. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. He said, please think on it. Whatsoever thing, we read in the book of Philippians. He said, man, think on these things, these 8 things. Especially the lovely thing, because the lovely thing, it keeps things lovely in your heart and your mind. When you start to just mesmerize by the loveliness and the poetic nature of Yahuwah Elohim. Don't overthink on excellence. Think on, there's other things you can think on. What's just too. And what's pure. And it says, but what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence, for it is not needful for thee to see the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men and women understand. Right? All right, so this is the book of, I gotta do this right quick. Gotta do this right quick. Right, so this is the book of Yeshayahu 50 and 10. Yeshayahu 50 and 10. Isaiah 50 and 10. Who among you fears Yahuwah and obeys the voice of his servant, his Aydah? He said, who you fears Yahuwah? Let him who walks in darkness and has no light trust in the name of Yahuwah. He said, let you trust in the name of Yahuwah. You in darkness and you ain't got no light. Your tent and your hall, your fire on the inside is gone out. And rely on his Elohim. Behold, all who kindle a fire, all who kindle a fire, who equip yourself with burning torches. What? Walk by the light of your fire. And by the torches that you have kindled. It all, you got to do it. He said, hold up. You know what people say? When we had sukkah, you had your fire. That you kindled. It says that you, from my hand, my yard, you shall lie down. He says, this you have from my hand. You shall lie down in torment. He said, why you gonna lie down in torment? Because all the things that people say, that, you know how they say. Right, so this is the book of Exodus. Let me get there. This is the book of Exodus. This is the book of Exodus. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 35 and verse 1. And Moshe assembled all the congregation and the people of Yasharal and said to them, these are the things that Yahuwah has commanded you to do. 6 days shall work be done, and on the 7th day you shall have a Shabbat, a solemn rest. Kudash to Yahuwah. Whosoever does any work shall be put to death. He said, put to death. You shall not kindle no fire on your dwelling places on the Shabbat day. He like, man, you ain't supposed to be kindling nothing. But we just read in Yeshayahu, he said, man, you who are in darkness, he said, man, kindle the fire. What you doing? You in darkness. So how you in darkness? How you in darkness, right? Right, so this is how you in darkness, right? And then people say, how you in darkness? Right, so this is the book of how you in darkness, right? So this is the book of Matthew. The book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 1. Matthew chapter 12, verse 1. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Shabbat. Right, going over. Verse 1, 12 and 1. At the time Yahushua went through the grain fields on the Shabbat, his disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck the heads of the grain. He said, they're hungry on the Shabbat. You know, he said, don't kindle no fire on the Shabbat. He said, but you who you're in the darkness, he said, man, kindle the fire, that you may have light, right? And get what he says. And began to pluck the heads of the grain and eat. But the Pharisees saw it, and they said to him, beware the leaven of the Pharisees. Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful. Right? They're not doing what is not lawful on the Shabbat. He said to them, have you not read what Dawid did when he was hungry? And those who were with him? And what did they do? And those who were with him, how he entered the house of Yasharal and ate, and the bread of his presence, which is not lawful for him to eat, nor for those with him, but only the priests, the Kohanim. Why? Because the only people who can kindle a fire are the priests. Because they got to offer bread every single morning and evening. And you got to kindle a fire. You got to kindle a fire. And you're a Kohan. And guess what? Or have you not read in the law how the Shabbat, the priests in the temple profane the Shabbat and are guiltless? Because they got to kindle a fire every single morning and evening. They got to offer sacrifices. I tell you, something greater than the temple is here. And if you had not known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice. You would have not commended, you will have not condemned the guiltless. For the son of Adam is master of the Shabbat. He said, you wouldn't condemn this. And that's the whole point, right? So this is the book of First Timothy. First Timothy. Actually, go to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 12. Hebrews chapter 12, verse. Go to Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12 and 17. For you know that afterward, when he desired to inherit a Barak, he was rejected. For he found no chance to repent, though he sought with tears. For you have not come to what may be touched. A blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest, and the sound of Turah and the voice of whole words made, hearers beg that no further message be spoken to them. Isn't that what we just read in Yeshayahu? He said, you're going to kindle the fire. He said, man, but you're going to be in torment. He said, this is from you. He said, man, we don't want to hear no more of this. You know what he says? For they could not endure the order that was given. He said, man, we don't want to hear that stuff. We don't want to, you talking about kindle a fire, and you talking about we in darkness, kindle a fire. He said, man, what the order you giving? What are you talking about? If even a blast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. He's like, indeed. So terrifying was the sight that Mashah said, I will tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Sion, oh, you mean the north, and to the city of the living Elohim, you mean the north. The heavenly Jerusalem, you mean the north. If you didn't be risen with Mashiach, seek those things which are above. Why are you looking at the clouds and the wind? What you looking up there for? He said, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to the innumerable Malachim in the festal gathering. He said, what you looking up there for? You supposed to be sowing and reaping. Man, you supposed to be killing the fire. What you doing looking up there? And he said, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in Shaby'ay. He said, what you looking at the clouds and wind for? What you doing? You supposed to be sowing and reaping, kindling the fire, right? But he says, and to Elohim and the judge of all. and the spirits of the righteous made perfect. And he said the Ruach, because that which is born of flesh is flesh, and that which is born of Ruach is Ruach. And to Yahusha, the mediator of a new covenant. Oh, you mean marriage? A new bereaved. That's what totality means. That's what the two mean. Covenant. And to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Habal. See that you refuse not him who is speaking. He said, I can't take it no more. He's talking about you who are in darkness. He said, kindle the fire. He said, why are you condemning the just? Don't you know the priests, the Kahan, when they, every single Shabbat, even when Dawid went and they ate the bread of the presence, he said they all blameless for killing the fire. Matter of fact, they all blameless, even though my disciples taking grain and rubbing it with their hands, in between their hands. That's how you kindle the fire. And guess what? For if they did not escape when they refused him who warned them from on earth, how much less will they escape if they reject him who warns from Shaby'ay? At that time, his voice shook the earth. Now you say, my heart turned upside down. Woo. My heart turned upside down, like Aydah said. But now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the Shaby'ays. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of things that are shaken. Man, he'd be thundering with his majestic voice. He'd be like, man, this thing rumbling. I told you the thunder different. You go into Rakia, he said, man, this thing gonna sound, but he gonna shake this whole place. That is the things that have been made in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Shamayim and earth will pass away, Mount Debar will never pass away. That's the only thing they're gonna remain. He said, you will remain the same. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And thus, let us offer to Elohim acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For our Elohim is what? Is a consuming fire. You're going to lie in torment. He said, this is from Yahuwah. He said, I don't want my tent to have a continual fire in it with Yahuwah. He's like, man, he be consuming. He be like, man, I can't do that either. I can't do that. He consume it. He be like, I can't do that. What can I do? This? I can't do that. He's like consuming fire. He just burn everything up. He be like, I thought I could do that. He's like, no, you can't do that either. You can't do nothing. When he get inside of you, I know these people like, I can do all that. No, you can't. I can think on that. No, you can't. I can do that with my hands. Nope. With my feet. Nope. You can't do that anymore. He said torment. That's why he says your cold's trouble. This is your cold's trouble, man. And that's the whole point. Right, so this Peter, we got it here. And it says, right, this is Peter, 2 Peter chapter 2. Second Peter chapter 2 and verse 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. But you are a chosen race, because he said you from another race, a royal priesthood, Kahanim. You wouldn't condemn the guiltless had you known it. You know the Kahanim continued. They ate the bread of the presence. Matter of fact, they ate the bread of the presence and they kindled fire on the Shabbat, and they guiltless. If you had known this, you would not have condemned the just. You would not have condemned them. You better not kindle that fire on the Shabbat, and you're not even knowing. Not even knowing. But you are a chosen race, a royal Kahanim, a royal priesthood, a Kudash nation, a people of his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. He said, you who are in darkness, he said, kindle a fire. Because you are a priest, you are Kahanim now. He said, this is from Yahuwah. You're going to be tormented though. You ain't going to be able to do nothing. Man, you have no idea. He called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. That's what the marvelous light is. Or, because when the people couldn't kill him the following Shabbat, they were in darkness. They didn't know that Yahushua came to freedom and bring them to this marvelous light, to bring them to the Kohanim, to bring them to the priesthood. They didn't know that. I was trying to free y'all. Because y'all were so busy worrying about not killing on the fire on the Shabbat. I can't kill on the fire on the Shabbat. Not even knowing he brought you to the Kohanim, brought you to the priesthood. And then by doing that, it gives us life. And then you know what it does? It frees us. It frees us, man. Because it keeps us, that stuff, people have no idea. That religious stuff, it was like a blinder. It was not, Yahuwah came to free everybody. When you're rod bud, guess what? Till the day dawn and day start rising your heart and your rod bud. And when it does, he said, man, praise him in it. You know how David said in Psalm 150? But David put that thing in there. He said, man, praise him in the symbol. Praise him with the double symbol. Praise him with everything you got. Man, he got that whole thing written up for you. When that thing goes, he said, man, just keep going. That's all you can do. Continual offering, right? He already wrote it down. If you go, people say, yeah, he did. Once you were not a people, but now you are Elohim's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you receive mercy. Beloved, I urge you, as sojourners and exiles, to abstain from the passions of the flesh. Now you see why he said you're going to be in torment. That fire on the inside of you, and you can't do a lot of things. Now you see why we read in the vision of Azra, he said, well, y'all doing things on Yahuwah's day. Right? Right? It's a lot of things you're restricted from now, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Goyim honorable. That's what you got to think on. So that they, when they speak evil of you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and kabod your Elohim on the day of visitation. Because he coming. What happened when Yunus was in the ship? Who came visiting him in the visitation? He come with earthquakes. He come with fire, hurricanes, storms, floods, right? He come with asteroid rocks, right? Fire from Shaby'ay, right? When Yahuwah start visiting the earth, he said, they're going to kabod who? When they see you, they're going to kabod Elohim on the day of visitation. When he visits the earth, they're going to start thinking about your Elohim. And that's how it works. Verse 9. I'm sorry. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah, that's all. So then, last thing, and I'm done, and it says, goodness, I'm done. Right, so this is the book of Revelation, Hazon, chapter 16 and verse 8. 16 and verse 18. 16, actually, Revelation 16 and 8. The fourth Malachi poured out his bowl on the sun. He said he poured out his bowl on the sun. And it allowed the scorched people with fire. He's like, what? They were scorched by fierce heat. And they cursed the name of Elohim who had power over these plagues. Why? Because he's like, man, when Yahuwah visited the earth, he said they supposed to kabod your Elohim. But for some reason, he said, make sure you keep yourselves honorable among the Goyim. That when Yahuwah visited the earth, they may give a bowl to your Elohim. But right here, they ain't doing it. It must be something going on with his people. Or they must not be saying the right things and doing things by their conduct correctly. They did not repent and give him kabod. That's why. Look like some people ain't doing something they supposed to be doing. The fifth Malachi poured out his bowl in the throne of the beast, on the throne of the beast. And its kingdom was plunged into darkness. Oh man, into darkness. But guess what Yahuwah did? He said, I called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. Because you know what happens? The only people that were kindling a fire on the Shabbat was the Kohanim. But if you weren't a Kohanim, You were in darkness. But then Yahuwah said, I brought you to this marvelous light. His whole kingdom was plunged in darkness. People gnawed their tongues in anguish and cursed the Elohim of Shaby'ay for their pains and sores. And guess what he says? They did not repent for their deeds. And these are all a part of it. And when you start looking at this, you start looking at this totality, right? So this is the 8th day of the Chag sukkah. There's a lot more. This is the 8th day of Chag sukkah. He said the last great day of Chag sukkah. But he said, he that believes on me, as the scripture said, out of his belly, his inward man shall flow rivers of living water. Knowing that rivers of living water that flows from the inward man is supposed to bring life to one. It's supposed to bring life to your garden. It's supposed to be life to you, and to wash you off and to cleanse you, not only yourself, but also others. We look at ourselves, we look at our inward being as that being, that vessel that must be sowed and reaped and harvested. That being on the inside that must have the ruach within. And not to labor for the things which perish. For these things, the other people didn't go and seek after. He said, but seek ye first the Malkuth and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. The more understanding will be added to you. The more hakmah, wisdom and knowledge and understanding will be added to you. And then you'll have your perfection will come forth on your inward man. And that these things may manifest on the outward man, that people may see you and kabod your Elohim in the day of visitation. So we live in this world, we are not of it. But as long as we live in the world, he said we will walk in Aydah. We will walk in Kana. We will walk in Anu. We will walk in Sana. We will walk in humility, in Shafal. We will walk in lowliness of mind. For he said mysteries are revealed into the Aydah. So he said, go on your business in meekness, Aydah. So shall I be beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more humble thyself, and thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. Many are in high places and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek, the Aydah, the hidden truth. For it's a hidden truth, or you will find yourself condemning the just. For the meek shall inherit the earth, the Aydah shall inherit the Aydah.